when a hooded woman, clasped hands held tightly before her, calls out to the crowd. She demands they kneel before the emperor. Nearby, others dressed in bizarre robes line the pathway in two long rows, facing each other right outside the entrance to the. This massive palace is a beautiful, majestic stronghold, bathed in a divine glow. This colossal castle was an absolutely massive estate. Out on the bridge, that hooded woman still stands by the path. Still praying with clasped hands, she begs for heaven to gather its divine blessing. Suddenly, a knight clad in thick steel armor swings an incredibly massive, sharp axe. He screams at the crowd to bow down before their ruler. Then a sharp crack, his cold iron weapon begins to break. The axe shatters. Out of nowhere, the knight gets hit. He takes a devastating counterstrike, losing his balance as he gets slammed to the ground. Completely ruined, his giant weapon now lies shattered on the bloodied stone floor. But the attackers are not just relying on simple hammers and axes today. They have come fully prepared to slaughter the emperor's elite royal guard. These men wield long, deadly spears. They brace themselves, weapons at the ready. They are prepared to impale any intruder who dares threaten their master's life. Clad in shining steel, these fierce fighters hold their ground, waiting for the perfect moment. This powerful group answers directly to the ruler himself, a mysterious figure. They are draped in pure white robes. They are the Supreme Special Forces unit. The group is built for a single, brutal purpose: every elite warrior in their ranks. Every soldier is sworn to defend the Grand Emperor, Lean Kevlin. This unit exists. This unit exists solely for his protection. Meanwhile, that hooded priestess keeps praying as. That hooded woman keeps her palms pressed together, even as massive, raging flames begin to tear through the plaza. Defeated, several brave warriors now lie completely lifeless on the stone floor. This chaotic fire burns everything in sight. Through the smoke, a man in white. The conqueror steps past their corpses, staring up at the majestic castle with utter contempt. To him, all of this is a joke. It is Yang, leader of the special forces. No hope. He is here to murder the emperor with his bare hands. A half-dead guard on the ground still weakly demands that Yang drop to his knees. Spending his final breaths, the broken man begs him to show respect. Another standing guard nearby desperately wants the formidable rebel leader. He wants Yang dead on the spot. Yang merely glares. He has come too far. The rebel refuses to back down now, fully prepared to wager his own life on this raid. He looks at the remaining guards standing in his way, but to him, useless puppets, they are nothing but mindless playthings to the crown. Suddenly, one guard pulls back his mask, exposing a terrifying, demonic face underneath. He roars at Yang to bow down. Things are getting absolutely insane. The guard's dark, monstrous form fully emerges, changing him into. He transforms into a hideous beast, lunging directly at Yang, but the rebel has no intention of backing down, raising his heavy sword in a flash. The brutal clash of. The collision of these two massive powers unleashes a storm of raw energy, igniting a massive blaze. Blinding golden sparks rain down, threatening to destroy everything in their path. The devastating shockwaves rip through the grand stairs leading up to. Flames are rapidly approaching the royal throne room, where the final target waits just inside. This was where the empire's great ruler usually resided, hearing a terrible sound of approaching fire. A wide-eyed, large-eared fairy wearily turned her gaze in its direction. The tiny sorceress fluttered down onto a warm hand, cautiously asking if the chaos outside was bothering her master, but the long-haired emperor, Leon Kavlin, sat calmly on his throne in his red robe, telling the fairy not to worry, because it was no big deal. Yet his large eyes flickered with sudden surprise as he tried to make sense of the commotion. Then Emperor Leon Kavlin spotted his most loyal subject, Yan, the special forces leader, standing below. In the emperor's eyes, seeing Yan in tattered clothes with such a dark look meant he had decided to commit ultimate betrayal. The crimson mask with white fangs slipped from the brave warrior's face. He stared up at his master, completely devoid of joy, and spoke. Leon asked him exactly how long it had been since Yan became a commander. He still remembered when the boy was just a recruit on a special training ground, the place they called the bottomless pit of loneliness. Yan had climbed all the way from slave soldier to elite leader. Looking down, Leon Kavlin reminded the knight that he had everything. He simply could not understand what could possibly make him so ungrateful. The young soldier bowed his head in silent fury, raging inside because Leon failed to understand his pain. Filled with bitter resentment, he snapped a wooden shaft, turning the broken piece into a lethal weapon, ready to strike And here is where the tension hits a boiling point, this direct threat only made Leon stay entirely calm. He just kept watching the tense warrior. It seemed like the Special Forces leader wanted to lunge forward with the sharp blade and drive a fatal strike straight into his master, furious at Leon Kavlin's sheer arrogance. Yan raised the weapon to his ear. Tiny green creature started slithering around. At first, the hollow-eyed Yan was ready to crush this miniature, swamp-colored dragon, but the small beast, flicking its forked tongue, slid away as Yan spat back, mocking the Emperor's words about having everything. Meanwhile, a purple-haired fairy landed on Leon Kavlin's palm, quietly staring at the treasonous knight who had dared to break in. The cruel Emperor suddenly squeezed the tiny fairy tight in his grip as Yan began speaking about his stolen memories, glaring directly at the Emperor. Yan screamed about losing his family, his very name, and his entire life. But mid-sentence, the commander suddenly went dead silent. He could not even finish his furious speech before his left arm was cleanly severed. Hovering behind him was a floating sword with an ornate, twisting hilt, clearly the weapon responsible for slicing through his flesh. Shocked, Yan suddenly remembered a familiar sensation that had happened to him once before, a crucial memory from his past. While he was focused on his revenge, he was forced to look back completely. Ignoring the pool of his own blood spreading on the floor, Emperor Leon Kavlin slowly stood up from his throne, feeling slightly annoyed that his loyal pet had somehow figured everything out. Now, with a dark, twisted look in his eyes, the ruler openly admitted that this Special Forces leader was always just his favorite little toy. Countless shattered memories flashed wildly through Yan's rapidly fading mind. He realized with bitter irony how foolish his rebellion had been. He was finally through with it. A mysterious voice tells Yan to wake up. Standing up, he cannot understand how he survived with a pierced heart. Looking up calmly, he sees faint light reflecting off the surrounding rocks. The young warrior immediately recognizes this place he had once tried to fight. The tyrant ruler Lion, touching a massive white pillar. Yan feels shocked. Disbelief washes over him as he opens his eyes to look around. The former Special Forces leader stands before an incredibly massive monument. This giant stone sword is breathtakingly huge, a true symbol of power. Thousands of recruits had perished right in front of this training icon. But Yan is far more shocked by the sudden changes in his own body. He realizes he is wearing the basic uniform of a brand new trainee. Suddenly, a sound. Someone is running incredibly close by. Someone rushes past Yan while he is still trying to process his situation. Out of nowhere, a massive fist slams directly into the young man. Sharp pain shoots through his shoulders, forcing him to clutch them in agony. The sudden, brutal attack sends him flying hard across the dirt. His aggressive attacker mockingly warns him to watch his back from now on. Pure unfiltered hatred, Yan grits his teeth, his eyes burning with rage. His attacker is Roman, the 12th recruit of this elite military unit. Roman always found Yan incredibly arrogant, and that clearly has not changed. Clenching his fist, the veteran soldier remembers this exact moment from his past. He looks up in surprise at the loud mouth calling him out. This 12th recruit stands tall, towering over his supposedly weaker target. Roman towers over the fallen, bruised youth, thinking this will be an easy win. But Yan is not that simple. Standing up, he asks if this is the training ground. To Roman, training is just an excuse. He wants to destroy his rival. He sneers that nobody cares if a low-ranking recruit suddenly turns up dead. Yan stands quietly, his face dark as he processes this insane reality. He was just invading the Imperial Palace. How did he end up here? It makes no sense, yet the massive stone sword is completely real. His own frail, youthful body and Roman's arrogant face prove it. He is actually back in the past, and honestly, who wouldn't be thrilled? The logic does not matter. Only this fresh chance to rewrite history does. He cannot afford a single mistake, not this time, no way. Because in this life, he is definitely going to take the Emperor's head. But first, he has to deal with the annoying thug standing right before him. Yan looks at Roman and throws him off with a completely bizarre comment. He tells his rival that experiencing real love before age 40 is completely impossible. Roman stares in total confusion, then clenching his fists, he lunges forward. He cannot believe this weakling dares to speak to him like that. Yan effortlessly steps aside, mockingly remarking on how incredibly slow the attack was. It was utterly pathetic. Roman's eyes flare with absolute humiliation. Hearing these biting insults from a weakling drives Roman into a wild fury. Desperately wanting to crush Yan, who just keeps smirking, Roman lunges again. He dashes in a wild zigzag pattern, yet he cannot even graze him. Looking completely calm, the young warrior wanted to offer a bit of advice to his furious rival, who kept glaring back with absolute rage, approaching the impatient recruit Roman. Yang tapped him on the chest and lightly suggested that he close the distance and attack. Then he suddenly delivered a devastating punch directly into Roman's stomach, catching him completely off guard. Right after, the 12th recruit went flying across the room from the unexpected impact, while Yang just stood there with his fists still clenched, screaming in agony. Roman's eyes nearly popped out as he wondered how a mid-tier recruit had such unbelievable skills. Clenching his teeth and keeping his guard up, Yang kept lecturing his opponent, telling him to keep pressing the offensive. But then, the young warrior looked away and caught sight of a strange purple object. Sailing through the air, the mysterious pendant smacked the wall and dropped to the floor, but Yang could not remember owning anything like it. Gathering the pendant from the floor, Yang turned his attention back to the groaning Roman, suggesting they call off the fight because the rookie got incredibly lucky. He popped open the small lid of the pendant, staring closely at what lay inside. Suddenly, the former squad leader's eyes grew incredibly wide as he processed what he was looking at. Tucked away inside the little container was a faded old photograph of a young boy standing with a man and a woman. Yang instantly recognized his younger self in that childhood portrait alongside those strangers. Even though he had never met them, the couple felt deeply familiar. Now, with hot tears welling up in his eyes, he accepted them as his family. Love, memories, home. Yang had not allowed himself to think of these things for 30 years. He had nothing. Even after turning the Imperial Capital to ash and slaughtering all of the elite royal knights, the legendary warrior had never been able to locate his parents. Yet now he held the one clue he needed right in his hands. Closing his eyes, Yang clutched the pendant tight, letting the flood of memories wash over him. Opening his eyes, he realized he had almost walked down that dark path of revenge all over again. Staring at his majestic sword, Yang decided he would not waste his new life on vengeance. He had to escape. Driven by a fierce determination, he vowed to reclaim everything he had lost. His life and his family. Originally, his elite special forces unit served under the direct command of the Emperor. Back during a dark era in history, the mighty fortress of Berna fell as a devastating fire consumed the stronghold. Citizens of the Empire also vividly remember the brutal assassination of the Grand Northern Continent, an execution tied directly to this shadow unit. Led by a legendary figure, they carried out numerous secret operations that decided the country's destiny. At the center of all that history-altering chaos was the nation's most feared commander, the elite special forces leader Yang himself. He was hailed as the Emperor's right hand and the Empire's strongest knight. And yet this weak recruit on screen was that exact legendary warrior who hauled barrels of waste all day just to clean out the septic tanks. The razor-sharp blades of their swords are gleaming with cold steel, ready for an impending clash. Two recruits stood. Recruits clash. Relentless sword training is crucial for building combat readiness within the faction. Over 1,000 raw recruits participate in this brutal gauntlet. Here, they must slaughter one another just to survive and grow stronger. Every day some die, 3 or 4. Replaced instantly by fresh volunteers or kidnapped victims. They train inside a massive winding dungeon, a literal dragon nest hidden away deep within northwestern peaks. Every rookie entering this deadly group is assigned a serial number, branded solely according to their raw combat skills. To climb, they must pass lethal exams or win brutal tournaments. High ranks in this pyramid grant better treatment. Others constantly claw at them, trying to drag down rival ratings. By stepping on heads, survival is a nightmare, almost impossible for weak bottom-tier rookies to survive. Not here. Yan, who spent his days hauling heavy wooden boxes, new dead recruits were instantly replaced. He knew firsthand they were treated merely as expendable labor, human fodder. Yan was no longer bitter or angry. He felt lucky to be deemed useful enough to carry cargo. Lost in quiet thoughts, the young man barely noticed the falling boxes behind him. Suddenly, someone screams out a warning to look at the broken crates opening slowly on the floor. Yan, looking Exhausted scrambled to secure the lids, totally confused where to watch. Then the elite recruits of this brutal hierarchy begin walking past. The struggling, unfortunate young man, one girl, a striking noble, gently apologizes to Yan for bumping into him, her eyes showing genuine concern. These elite recruits are heirs of the grand nobility, joining out of loyalty to carry on their prestigious family legacies. Naturally, the administration pampers them with extreme luxury and comfort, and because of their high status, they never suffer pest-ridden quarters. Only the absolute best recruits receive these prime privileges at the top. This elite group includes Lena Beowulf, Cruel Dwight, and Casa Ephraim, the undisputed top 3 prospects of the entire selection. One glares at Yan with pure malice, disgusted that Lena would apologize to a peasant he calls trash, the arrogant rival. Reminds everyone of their status. Yan must never assume they are equals or speak to him. He calls Yan number 974. Asking if he is deaf, he mocks his lack of intelligence. Deep down, the desperate young man burns to crack his enemy's skull. Instead, he swallows his pride and quickly apologizes aloud, muttering about his own carelessness as a former Special Forces commander. This is highly humiliating. Despondency fills his cold eyes. His rival sneers, telling him only actual humans beg for forgiveness, not mere wooden box carriers. The grinning noble demands that Yan bang his head against the stone wall and beg for mercy. That hideous, mocking face of the malicious recruit continues to loom in front of the poor boy. His opponent openly mocks. John laughed, mockingly pointing out how the boy looked, as though he was seeing a nobleman for the first time, while the poor kid just closed his eyes, desperately trying to keep his cool. The arrogant bully laughed, claiming Yan had swallowed his tongue from fear, thinking that everyone froze up when meeting Cruel. Finally, the 3 elite recruits walked away, though Cruel warned the boy to be extremely careful in the future. Beowulf apologized and stacked the wooden boxes, rubbing his tired face. Yan watched them go, mentally telling them to enjoy their petty little ranks, because keeping a low profile suited him much better. After that annoying confrontation, the young man carried his heavy cargo along the towering fortress walls. Suddenly, a strange sight ahead forced him to stop and look. Something highly unusual caught the young box carrier's eye, faint, mysterious. Sparks drifted from a nearby doorway, and a shadow seemed to be lurking inside the dark corners. Yan's eyes widened as a heavy suspicion hit him. Perhaps that recruit Roman was behind this, but a bizarre intuition warned him. Otherwise, racing through his options, Yan decided to play dumb and simply act clueless as he edged closer to the source. Moving toward the eerie glow, the young man loudly grumbled about how tough his chores were. But wait, a girl's voice suddenly cut in, saying she was waiting for him. Her large, expressive eyes locked onto the boy hauling the heavy wooden crates. The gorgeous Lena Beowulf, clad in pure white, instantly recognized him as recruit number 974. The most wanted criminal whom even the Imperial Knights could never capture was the legendary villain, Iron Fist Gald. This monster committed his very first murder at age 11. By 20, he led a brutal gang of outlaws who destroyed 23 villages and 17 guilds. The terrifying sight of this monster's giant, lethal fist struck absolute terror deep into the hearts of many. Yet the fearless Lena Beowulf grabbed the massive Gald and single-handedly arrested this dangerous outlaw. Dragging him away in chains, she effortlessly secured her grand promotion as the commander of the elite Imperial Palace Knights. The House of Beowulf is one of the 4 great noble families ruling the frozen mountain valleys of Bokbang. Every knight serving their banner believes that Lady Lena was born to become the greatest swordsman on the entire continent. Since Lena Beowulf was just a young girl, she was hailed as a sword prodigy, having already faced ferocious mountain frost giants. None of Lena's formidable opponents ever stood a single chance of defeating her. She always emerged completely victorious, armed with a fearless heart and striking blue eyes. She was the crown jewel of the Beowulf legacy. Standing inside the cold chamber, Yan carefully asked if she was really addressing him. He feigned confusion, hoping the prestigious lady had simply mistaken him for someone else. Observing her cautiously, the guy secretly agreed with the rumors that Lena was a deadly figure whom it was far safer not to cross. A dangerous enemy. But Lena quickly changed tactics, asking point-blank about the real goal of recruit number 974. While she pressed him to explain why he was hiding his immense strength, John tried to deflect. He claimed he had no idea what she was talking about. But she had witnessed his brief clash with the stone sword, mistaking it for a standard squabble between low-level recruits, looking down from her high position. Looking down at Yan's training battle, Lena was utterly speechless. Those incredible combat techniques clearly set this young man apart from everyone else. She couldn't understand it. Why was he still stuck at the lowest rank? Realizing a slip-up had occurred, Yan panicked. He pretended to have absolutely no idea what this noblewoman meant. Seeing this low-rank recruit was not easily broken, Lena shifted her approach entirely. She stepped closer, making it seem like she was letting her guard down. Offering her hand to the former Special Forces commander, Lena gracefully admitted her mistake. Suddenly, she thrust her palm directly toward the chest of the unsuspecting recruit. Caught off guard, his eyes widened in sheer shock. In that split second, Yan realized she was trying to test his limits. He saw her hand incoming and immediately understood the danger of his situation. Yet he decided it was best not to react to the attack. In that instant, Lady Beowulf delivered a direct strike straight to his face. Yan crashed heavily onto the floor, bruised and pretending to be completely devastated. He yelled out at her, demanding to know why she did that. But she only stared at him with surprise, expecting him to block it. Believing her instincts were wrong, she apologized, and Yan assured her of his weakness. He insisted he was not the legendary fighter she was looking for. Yan decided to play on her guilt, acting like a helpless commoner. He complained about being treated unfairly by the arrogant highborn nobility. For a soft-hearted noble girl like her, this act was bound to work. Sure enough, Lena immediately offered to help carry his heavy cargo boxes. She wanted to help lift one, but Yan insisted that it was unnecessary. Since they were fellow recruits, Lena requested that he speak to her informally. This casual dynamic felt a bit strange to a seasoned soldier like Yan. As they walked, she insisted that high ranks should not abuse their power. She promised to protect lower ranks if she ever gained real political power. Meanwhile, Yan only kept thinking about how incredibly talkative she was. With her help, he safely delivered all the supplies to their destination. Hearing his polite thank you made her feel surprisingly proud of herself. But as she headed for the exit, she mentioned a lingering suspicion. Yan instantly tensed up. Honestly, what could she possibly be planning next? Suddenly, the noblewoman turned back to bring up her sudden attack once more. Lady Beowulf made it clear she still intended to watch him very closely. A cold shiver ran down his spine as she stared intently at him. Lena deeply hoped her instincts were wrong and she was overthinking things. As she left, she bid farewell to recruit number 974. Then she corrected herself, casually calling him by his real name, Yan. He lowered his head, realizing this girl was far too sharp for comfort. Now it was highly uncertain if his hidden identity would remain safe. A dark, decisive thought crossed the mind of the former Special Forces commander. He looked up, mentally picturing his hand clamping hard around her neck. He seriously considered eliminating her. He could easily do it right now. He thinks about doing something important. Yang could easily handle this situation. He wants to take down Lena, but killing her means the family turns instantly. Peeking out, Yan knows making an enemy of that family is just foolish. No way, he cannot risk starting a war just to deal with her. Stepping into the bathroom, he decides to escape this complex first. He recalls his past commander days, remembering the deserters he used to hunt. Most runners failed, they never even made it past the training grounds. Caught every time, but Yan remembered one specific man who actually succeeded. That runaway slipped past the perimeter, only to be found later in a nearby forest. Back then, Yan cornered the man and got him to reveal his escape route. Deeply touched by his commander's kindness, the fugitive spilled everything. Agony pure pain, the shivering soldier whispered the secret. He told Yan about the third section, behind the fifth toilet stall. Now the former Special Forces captain runs his hand along that very wall. Freedom finally, Yan lets out a faint, quiet smile. Talk about a crazy stroke of luck, his way out is actually real. Pushing hard, Yan breaks through the weak brickwork of the fifth stall. Bricks crumble quietly to the floor, exposing a dark passageway leading straight out. A tiny speck of light shines deep inside. It means real liberation. It is his way out of this hellhole, and Yan cannot look away. There it is, that small gap is his ticket to finally being free. While the opening is narrow, widening it makes his escape almost certain. He refuses to remain a prisoner, disguised as a recruit in this place. A dark grin, Yan wants out, his hunger for freedom burning hot. He quietly pries loose more bricks, fully committed to leaving this nightmare. In the dim corridor, right outside, the nightly roll call begins now. A heavy-booted guard paces down the hallway, checking on every single recruit. He barks out number 970 and gets a quick, weary response. Skipping the dead guy, 9001, he calls 972 next. That recruit is present too. Next, the guard wearing the fanged red mask steps up. He calls for 974, nothing, just dead silence. Sensing trouble, the guard steps closer. The tension here is absolutely unreal. An escape? No, Yan is just lying there lazily. Yan casually calls out his number, claiming he is just resting. The annoyed guard snaps back, tell him to answer faster next time. Done, finally satisfied, the officer yells at everyone to douse their lights. One by one, the candles flicker out, plunging the cells into darkness. Staring into the dark, Yan knows he has to tread very carefully. Wait, patience is key. Taking his time gives him a better shot. Mulling over his escape plan, he stares quietly up at the ceiling. One shot, just one. There is absolutely no room for error. If he triggers the alarms, every guard here will hunt him down. One single mistake, that is all it takes to end him. A lesson, a brutal warning to keep all the others in line. Reaching down toward the wooden floorboards, the former commander searches. He needs a hidden trump card, something no one would expect. Wild card in this game, the dark room where candles burned just a few minutes ago lay silent. Then, a sudden flash of light illuminated everything. Yang realized he had no other option, though his current body made things incredibly risky. He had to try anyway. Suddenly, a bright glow wrapped around Yang and he activated the breath of the divine dragon, a legendary method of controlling mana. Only a true genius could pull this off, and thankfully he had the knowledge down. However, his weak physical vessel was simply not ready for the strain. To survive this, he had to build a mana core, but time was running out. The dragon's breath alone would not form a core in time, but he had no other option. Longing for his freedom, the young recruit gritted his teeth. He needed absolute focus to push past his physical limits. Slowly, the powerful dragon technique began to stir within him. His desperate effort finally started to pay off, triggering a massive transformation. Crackling energy shot straight through his muscular arm like brilliant lightning. Yang did not expect such a fast, violent rush of pure magical energy. Every single cell in his body was screaming, releasing a massive surge of power. It felt as though a living dragon was thrashing around inside him. Talk about intense. This divine breath is the legendary secret technique of the first emperor. He was a conqueror who built an empire through absolute martial force. The calculating ruler designed this devastating technique during his darkest days. While Yang recalled the history of this legendary technique, a sudden panic hit him. Looking down at his transforming body, a terrifying realization flashed in his mind. He realized with sudden dread that the escaping mana might destroy his unstable core. That was something he absolutely could not let happen. His entire body was now covered in glowing, electric lines as he tried to stabilize the flow. Yang desperately struggled to lock the wild magical energy inside his physical form. He poured every ounce of willpower into keeping the power contained. The sheer magic made Yang's room erupt in a brilliant, blinding light, but just as quickly the glow died out, plunging the room back into silence. It was pitch black again. Yang hung his head in absolute defeat. He had failed, and a bitter wave of disappointment washed over him. Clutching his head in frustration, Yang realized his weak body just could not handle forming the core. The Emperor had shared this technique once, but the Emperor had revealed this secret technique to him personally, but Yang did not know if it was a whim or some cruel test of loyalty. Then, the ruler handed him a manual on gathering mana, but it lacked crucial details. It said nothing about concentration, leaving the technique completely unfinished. Regardless, Yang had to prioritize his escape before his time ran out. The very next morning, disturbing rumors began spreading through the camp. Those in charge were planning to disqualify all the new recruits. Shock rippled through the young soldiers, though a few already suspected it. To Yang, the whole thing sounded like absolute nonsense. Honestly, who could believe that? He was certain it was a lie, but his companion remained deeply worried. Their safe return, but then Yang remembered a crucial meeting he had scheduled. He had to meet them today, and he would do whatever it took to succeed. Since the guy has not noticed him yet, suddenly, Roman appears right behind him. He starts calling out to Yang, who hides under his hood, shocked by his friends. Relentless energy. Just then, the recruits spot the instructor standing on a high platform in front of them, secretly hoping they might go home today. The instructor stares down at the crowd with cold, blank eyes. Completely lost in his own mind, then he suddenly roars at the recruits, ordering them all to shut up and sending a wave of pure terror through them. The crowd shrinks back from his deafening shout, shivering in absolute fear. Yang immediately senses something off. This must be the voice of mana. Unleashed directly on normal people, Yang clutches his chest as the pressure hits him. This magic-infused sound is no joke. It can easily cause fatal internal injuries. Looking down from his high perch, the brutal instructor sneers at them. He calls them worthless trash, lacking any talent, status, or power. Glaring at this hostile tyrant, Yang never expected to run into this lunatic again. It is Damien, the ruthless head instructor in charge of training elite forces. He smugly asks the crowd if they even know why they are still breathing. Nearby, a terrified blonde kid is dragged away by his collar. An officer clad in a deep red cloak barks out a harsh command for silence. He forces the panicked crowd to line up, throwing insults left and right. Get moving, he snaps, reminding them that they are currently under watch. The head instructor is observing their every movement from his high platform. Keeping his eyes on the boss, Yang resolves to tread very lightly here. To a monster like him, these recruits are nothing but disposable toys. If he locks eyes on someone, they might as well say goodbye to life. Damien finally addresses the crowd, mockingly calling them his respected guests. He claims he is glad to welcome them, but quickly drops the act. To him, they are all just untalented, low-born trash, looking down at them. The head instructor openly admits that he actually wants to slaughter everyone. Smiling warmly while shielding his eyes, the twisted man tells them not to worry. Yang listens as the man labels them useful garbage for the great emperor. He claims it is a blessing that they were even granted a second chance. Grinning like a hungry predator, the instructor begins to explain their true purpose. He offers them a rare shot to join the prestigious Dragon Soldier Project. The secret unit chooses elite warriors tasked with guarding the Imperial Palace. They will serve the supreme dragon of the Empire as his ultimate shields. It sounds like a grand honor, but wait, the truth is far more sinister. These recruits are completely brainwashed using horrific, mind-controlling parasites. The real goal is to forge absolute, mindless puppets for the ruler. Soldiers who are literally forbidden to die without an official command. Damien praises the emperor as a merciful god, demanding they show gratitude. He orders the entire field to offer a roaring round of applause. They must clap for the divine ruler standing at the very top. Keeping his gaze locked on Damien, Yang slowly claps along to blend in. He needs to stay completely hidden, but then something totally unexpected happens. A recruit raises his hand to ask the instructor a question, catching him off guard. Everyone watched in utter disbelief because it was Roman showing such massive discontent. He openly demanded to know if this dragon squad actually mattered so much. As the instructor began laying out what selection would mean for a soldier, Yang just stood there, waiting skeptically for more useless words from the man. He thought his teacher was a total idiot. Meanwhile, Roman was absolutely furious. His hair was completely wild as he ground his teeth in pure rage. He hated how everyone doubted his power to crush that arrogant punk. Suddenly, light flashed. A beam of energy pierced right through the chest of the clueless recruit. The boy stared in complete shock. Witnessing this madness, Yang unlocked a new skill. It was called Tanagan, allowing him to fire deadly energy bullets from his fingertips. Roman collapsed to the ground, heavily wounded, and his survival was looking pretty grim. Reaching out with his left hand, Chief Instructor Damien asked if he was okay. Staring down with cold, crimson eyes, Damien felt this kid was just a talker. To him, nothing but pure garbage spilled from Roman's bloody mouth. Damien saw them as useless freeloaders. Some feared Roman was dead. Other recruits screamed for him to get up. Meanwhile, Jian watched silently. Jian could have easily stopped the bleeding, but stepping forward was far too risky. Roman survived, and hearing his mentor's mocking words only made his blood boil. Despite getting blasted by his own teacher, the wounded recruit slowly forced himself up. The others begged him to stay quiet, but he stared Damien dead in the eye. He was furious about being dismissed as a useless freerider. In his rage, he asked what that made the people running this place. Who gathered all these supposed freeloaders? He angrily reminded everyone of the truth. To survive these harsh slums, he had to swallow his pride and do dirty work. Two armored guards grabbed Roman to drag him away, but he spun around. He kept yelling back at the comrades who had suffered alongside him all this time. Even through the misery, they just wanted to survive. Nearby, two terrified kids huddled together. They stared fearfully at the road ahead, trying to understand what they just heard. Damien had mentioned the mighty emperor and the legendary dragon squad. Honestly, Roman could not care less about that stuff. His eyes burned with hatred. Looking at his mentor, he snarled that the old man should protect the emperor himself. Hearing this bold, insolent challenge, Damien simply closed his eyes. He muttered that Roman was a surprisingly stubborn freerider. To him, the boy was just a lowly cockroach that refused to die. He lowered his hand and snapped his fingers, triggering a sudden wave of magic. Roman could only watch in utter bewilderment as the air began to shift. He had absolutely no idea what was happening. Suddenly, a blinding magical light erupted right before his eyes. A crystal mole materialized, a cave-dwelling beast known for being incredibly deceptive. It looked cute, but it was highly dangerous. Right now, this was bad news. Everyone in the courtyard needed to get away from it immediately. This creature is famous for exploding into a flash that blinds everyone nearby. Honestly, Roman was about to learn that lesson the hard way. Damien watched the unfolding chaos from above with complete indifference. Meanwhile, Roman shielded his face from the blinding flash. It felt like he was flying through the clouds, completely clueless about where that mole actually came from. Then crash, the exhausted recruit slammed right back onto the hard dirt. His comrades quickly crowded around in a semicircle, urging him to get moving. Damien simply stood there watching, while the other recruits stood around in total confusion. While they stared at the fallen Roman, Yan stood frozen, his eyes glued to a single spot. Looking at his injured teammate, Yan immediately regretted releasing that mole. Yan had found a crystal-like wild rodent in the latrine and wanted to keep it. He shoved the little beast right under his shirt, completely unaware of how useful it would become. Back then, the former Special Forces leader knew his biggest obstacle was the chief instructor. All he could do was pray the terrifying instructor would not notice. Getting caught meant instant ruin, a terrifying thought that completely paralyzed the young recruit. Meanwhile, Chief Instructor Damien stood there in dead silence. He stood quietly, deeply considering what had just played out on the field. Finally, he mocked Roman's stubbornness, calling the tough recruit a cockroach. But deep down, he loved that spirit, ordering them to keep the rebel. Even though this decision did not involve Yan, he finally exhaled in relief. He bowed his head, realizing he had actually managed to escape any punishment. No punishment today. Nearby, two comrades hoisted Roman onto their shoulders. Watching them drag him off, Yan quietly muttered that Roman was an idiot. Roman just stared blankly into the distance, without making a single sound. Yan knew this eerie silence meant the guy had hit his absolute limit. Deep within the fortress, cold stone steps spiraled downward. Under the dim glow of a single torch, Chief Instructor Damien walked alone. He replayed the day's events in his mind with a malicious smile. The dangerous man stared into the dark, planning his next move. His red-eyed glare promised absolute hell for the recruits. First Roman, then Yan. To him, they were just amusing new toys. Now the real game begins, as Yan prepares his secret escape. The former Special Forces leader targeted an abandoned outhouse in the third zone. Hidden right inside was a small, dusty hole, his secret gateway to absolute freedom. The dark tunnel he painstakingly dug was surprisingly wide enough for him to squeeze through. Yan crawled right in, cursing his own careless mistakes along the way. He realized 3 entire days had already slipped past in a blink. Recruit 974 spent 3 days prepping for this breakout. But without a proper mask, he had to start an entirely new tunnel. He had to reinforce the walls with boards and repeat the tedious loop. Fortunately, absolutely nothing went wrong during those quiet 3 days. With his eyes bolstered by magical mana, he could see perfectly in the pitch black. Yan kept swinging his hand axe, completely unbothered by the heavy darkness. Not a single soul had set foot in this area for 3 straight days. It was a forgotten, dead zone that did not exist on any map. Stabbing his blade into the dense earth, he let his mind drift to the future. But as his blade struck the dirt once more, a weird metallic clink echoed. Yan froze instantly, realizing his weapon had just slammed into something solid. A strange, brilliant light began seeping out from under the dark, heavy soil. And the blade's sharp edge, signaling long-awaited freedom for the young man, Yan, stared at the rays of light with absolute excitement. He felt like he had made an incredible discovery. Out in the courtyard, the duty officer was questioning recruits. Numbers 830, 892, and 920 stood present. The officer called for trainee 974, but he was nowhere near those massive wooden barrels. Dressed in red, the duty officer spotted Yan walking up and ordered him to halt because the young man smelled suspicious, suspecting the new recruit was hiding something. The guard commanded him to pull back his hood. Yan actually reached for his collar, ready to make a sudden confession. He admitted to accidentally breaking the foul container he was currently hauling, sending a horrific stench of waste directly toward the officers. The guard instantly felt sick, ordering the smelly recruit to get lost. This was exactly what the young man wanted, playing right into his escape plan. Yan hung up his stinky uniform, wondering if he would ever wash out the terrible smell, yet he felt quite relieved that nobody else suspected his real moves. While digging away in the dark tunnel, he never could have imagined that his blade would strike a hidden drain pipe. Right then, the recruit saw a dragon-shaped fluid pour out, leaving him wondering what his fellow recruits actually eat, but there was no reason to panic. Everything was going perfectly according to plan. Yan had already stashed away several daggers, ropes, and other critical tools for his upcoming escape. The young recruit's physical condition was also peak ready, thanks to his secret training with pure magical mana. Before that, he honestly thought he might pass out during the physical drills because of the brutal intensity. Thinking about how all that pain had paid off, Yan was planning his final moves when he suddenly overheard a quiet conversation between two guards. One instructor was telling another about a trainee named Gale, whose tongue was cut off for laughing at the instructor, leaving the listener shaking in fear. That is when Yan heard one guard tell his buddy to hang in there, because the instructor would soon be leaving. Smiling to himself, Yan resolutely adjusted his gear, realizing this was the perfect opportunity since the chief instructor would be away. Heading back to his post, the young man made a firm decision not to waste such an incredibly golden opportunity. The former Special Forces leader approached the abandoned toilet in Zone 3 again. There was nobody near the forgotten facility, and Yan continued thinking about his escape. Approaching the toilet entrance, Yan kept thinking about the need to finish before the chief instructor's return, but suddenly a strange sound echoed nearby. The recruit realized those were footsteps, and indeed, an unknown person was heading straight from the shadows toward the exit. The footsteps grew louder, but due to the pitch-black room, the recruit could not make out their identity. The startled young man immediately thought of Lena Beowulf and Chief Instructor Damien, wondering if they knew his secret escape plan. The silhouette exiting the dark building finally appeared, and Yan instantly recognized the figure with wide-eyed stare. Roman suddenly appeared right in front of him, looking incredibly shocked to find the low-ranked trainee standing right here. Roman looks as if he just saw a ghost, while Yan scolds him for following. Yan does not want to waste time arguing. Roman quickly jumps in to defend himself. Roman explains he is only there for work. Yan feels quite worried about his health. Roman was up and moving, but he hated the way people looked at him. The acupuncture worked wonders, but Yan continues to watch closely. Yan stares intently at his older comrade, sensing something is still not quite right. Yan points directly to the blood dripping down Roman's body, waiting for an explanation. Roman denies it immediately, claiming the blood is just from a bad breakout. Accepting the excuse, Yan heads to the old toilet to finish his chores. Roman smirked, completely disbelieving his junior comrade's obvious lies and finding it all rather silly. But as Roman watches Yan, his grin fades. Something is definitely off. Roman suddenly realizes Yan is planning an escape, filling him with shock and fear. The recruit stares at Yan with a quiet, wicked grin. He mockingly says that if the mentors ever find out, Yan will be in deep trouble. Now he wants to see how Yan will react, but Yan clearly despises his attitude. Yan snaps. He grabs his heavy work dagger with absolute rage. He decides to unleash the 16th Dark Spirit technique to hunt down his target. Roman is furious. How dare Yan make such a dangerous move? He bares his teeth, utterly outraged that Yan would actually dare to threaten him. He demands to know who this kid really is, wielding a blade so naturally. But Yan only stares ahead, completely ignoring the frantic shouts of his opponent. Bowing his head, Yan quickly calculates his options. His secret is out. He realizes there is only one choice. Roman has to die. Roman demands to know why he is silent. Yan slowly opens his eyes. Vision fades. Roman is completely fine, entirely unaware of what almost happened. He thinks Yan froze out of pure fear, so he reminds him of the death penalty. Yan truly did not expect Roman to catch on to his plan so easily. Roman thinks Yan will beg him to keep it quiet, but Yan remains silent. Yan seriously doubts Roman actually intends to report him to the elders. Roman hates that response, threatening to go straight to the mentors this very second. Watching him closely, Yan calmly claims Roman would never betray a fellow recruit. He will not tell. What Yan says next completely catches Roman off guard. He knows Roman hates this prison even more than he does. Now here's a massive twist. Yan remembers Roman's violent clash with the chief. Yan remembers Roman's sheer fury during that brutal confrontation. Even when facing death, Roman glared back fiercely at his overpowering opponent. Beneath all that anger, his deepest desire was simply to escape and go home. Digging the tunnel, Yan knew Roman would never snitch to the instructor. Because deep down, Roman wanted to escape this hellhole more than anyone else. Yan locks his serious gaze onto his comrade, asking if he truly understands. Roman stares back with an intense look. He knows it is true. He mutters that things are far too complicated for them now. Roman remembers their past fight, having felt something deeply unusual about Yan even then. Roman had openly defied the chief instructor, but his pride remains bruised. He definitely has not forgot the brutal punch Yan landed during training. Looking at the group, Roman was now completely sure, if Yan had made a different decision back then, his older comrade would not even be here today. From that day on, Roman always recognized Yan among the other recruits. He had a distinct sense that the senior could easily pick up. The rookie stared back in sheer amazement, calling him a total stalker since he had no idea what sent Roman meant. Crossing his arms, Yan asked with surprise how Roman knew about the digging, and his senior simply pointed to the leftover traces. Recalling that the training grounds were built almost entirely from solid granite, Roman highlighted the strange traces of white lime dust. After looking closely, the young recruit realized the foot size and length of stride perfectly matched his own dimensions. Honestly, how did Roman figure this out? The escape from just those clues, he quickly found out that his comrade had seen the old escape records Yan was secretly studying. The junior recruit realized Roman was incredibly sharp, despite his deceptively simple appearance. Now Roman wanted in. He asked Yan to share the escape plan, with him wanting to know where the tunnel led and their actual chances in the dark corridors. Yan finally asked if Roman wanted to escape too. But Roman could not answer yet. He needed time. Yan suggested that Roman stay put because of his talents. If Roman remained for 10 years, he would reach incredible heights. Right as Yan was about to leave, he stopped. He asked what Roman was so desperate to protect back home. The older man envisioned a photograph of children, realizing his own life was not even guaranteed. Looking at the partially burned photo, Roman wondered if he could truly protect everything he loved if he just waited around for another 10 years. Yan had no time. Decide now. He urged his senior to make a choice. Right now, because if they do not act within the next couple of days, they would be dead. Roman then asked if Yan actually had a plan. For what came after, the two kept talking near the dark, quiet rooms where Yan confidently confirmed he knew exactly what to do. Roman in turn laid out his own thoughts, sketching a mental diagram of the escapees and the powerful instructors. Roman showed the harsh reality. He pointed out the huge gap among the 962 recruits. By Roman's estimate, the instructors would react instantly. They would notice Yan's absence first, and if Yan's prediction was right, they would both end up in an early grave within a matter of days. But in that moment, the former Special Forces leader new appearances were highly deceiving. He never expected such a sharp mind from his comrade. Roman stared in utter surprise, unsure whether to take the rookie seriously. It felt like casting a line into pitch-black waters, hoping for a bite. Yan simply told him not to complain, ready to take this ultimate gamble when faced with the final choice of what to do. Roman closed his eyes, weighing the heavy stakes of their situation. He finally opened his eyes. There was no other choice. High above the jagged cliffs where the recruits trained, the cold stars glistened in the night. The chief instructor watched silently from below. Damien smiled and hummed a soft tune while preparing to address the gathered recruits. He stayed cheerful, flanked by his personal assistants. Damien noted how pleasant the evening breeze was before starting his formal speech. He had assembled them at this ridiculously late hour to make a major announcement. Kai's high-level recruit number 32 heard Damien apologize to the crowd. Damien apologized for dragging them out of bed, but it was necessary. Recruit Mabin, who was number 525, wanted them to get straight to the point. Low-level recruit number 974, Yang, suggested holding the exam today. Start today, why wait? Damien simply ignored the question and kept speaking. Instructor Damien kept speaking, detailing the schedule for their very first exam. The rules of the test were shockingly simple for the stunned trainees. Every cadet would be dropped into a designated area, survive 1 week, and they pass. With his head lowered, Yang listened closely to every single detail. Chief Instructor Damien slowly discussed the grim, terrifying details of their upcoming journey. Finally, Damien flashed a cold, mocking smile as he named their destination. Their first trial would take place in the brutal Blade Mountains. The young recruit Yang stared at his leader, knowing the dark rumors of that place. Legend spoke of an ambitious young adventurer named Neil who ventured there. Neil had entered the Blade Mountains, searching for a rare herb to heal his mother. The gentle young man told his mother not to worry before he set off. He promised her that he would bring back the medicine without fail. But then absolute tragedy struck deep within those foggy peaks. With his final breath, Neil clung to his promise of returning home. His mother waited for his return until her death, never knowing the truth. Perhaps it was mercy that she never learned of his horrific fate. The Blade Mountains served as a breeding ground for countless vicious beasts. Goblins are merely the weakest pests dwelling on the outer edges here. The deeper one travels, the more colossal and savage the beasts become. Bloodthirsty giants hunt there, easily tearing lesser monsters apart. Creatures from dark fairy tales make these treacherous cliffs their home. Truth is, completely undocumented horrors are waiting to tear these recruits apart. Deep within the peaks lives a monster of absolute, unmatched terror. Damien clapped his hands mockingly, watching the anxious faces of his trainees. He wondered how many of these pathetic worms would survive. To be honest, he actually gets a sick thrill out of their demise. Just then his assistant stepped forward, offering a quick apology. The assistant whispered an urgent message that instantly caught Damien's attention. Watching from the crowd, Yang overheard them discussing a sudden contact. Apparently, a request had arrived demanding the presence of an instructor. Damien listened intently out of the corner of his eye and nodded. The assistant flashed a grim, ominous smirk toward the clueless recruits. It was clear that a hellish ordeal was waiting for them. Damien waved his hand dismissively, ordering the crowd to disperse. Pulling up his hood, Yang realized the chief was in a terrible mood. Damien ending the meeting so quickly meant trouble lay ahead for everyone. The younger recruits had almost zero chance of surviving out in those harsh mountains. The instructors only favored the wealthy nobles and older recruits, but Yang felt his eyes widen in complete shock when a woman's sharp voice suddenly demanded everyone move away. From her path, immediately, the recruits scrambled into 2 neat rows to let miss Lauren pass, her blinding aura completely outshining the lower recruits, pulling down his hood. Yang watched this incredibly popular figure, who was an absolute legend here. Even elites like Lena participated in the organization's night drill, and Yang prayed she would simply walk past. At first, the elite girl did just that, completely ignoring the miserable recruits while locked deep in her own thoughts. But then, the one thing the young recruit Yang desperately wanted to avoid actually happened. Lena Beowulf suddenly shifted her piercing gaze directly toward his spot. It was as if she had just seen a ghost, staring wide-eyed at the boy standing among the crowd. Yang, who desperately wanted to avoid catching the eye of his superiors, stared back gloomily. There was no doubt she had recognized him, even though Ms. Beowulf kept walking without stopping. The young recruit realized that things had just gotten infinitely worse as his shadow stretched across the dusty ground. Yang reassured himself, no need to worry because he would definitely escape this prison soon. Turning toward Roman, who stood close by Yang, Asked if the preparations were fully complete. Luckily, his fellow recruit had finished every task. Not quite ready to trust him blindly, Yang demanded absolute proof. He pointed toward the massive stone sword ahead, but Roman saw nothing. Special in the annoying monument, when Yang said that starting tomorrow, Roman would never have to lay eyes on it again, his comrade looked back with absolute disbelief. You see, Yang already knew about a secret Imperial message sent to their chief instructor. Before the upcoming trial, the man was ordered to personally report directly to the royal court and update the emperor on the status of the trainees. Their head instructor, Damien, absolutely loathed visiting the imperial palace. But disobeying a direct royal command was completely out of the question. Because of this, their greatest obstacle was finally gone. Tonight was their golden opportunity to flee this ruthless organization forever. Soon, a lone torch flickered inside the dark dungeon, casting long shadows as the guard barked out recruit number 220. The prisoner weakly responded. The instructor slowly patrolled past the filthy cages. Noting that recruit number 231st was eliminated, though 256th responded, he kept reviewing the names of those still breathing, working down the list until he reached number 274, the crimson-clad guard. Halted in front of Yang's bars, snarling at him to answer much faster, snidely accusing him of daydreaming, keeping his gaze glued to his clipboard. The guard impatiently repeated the name and serial number of the captive boy. But the guard made a critical mistake. He stood way too close to the dark bars, completely unaware of the powerful arms reaching silently toward him. From the shadows, in a flash, Yang grabbed the guard, locking him down. Instantly, he whispered to his crew, the escape was officially starting now. With Roman and their allies ready, they had to move incredibly fast. The next guard patrol was due any second, so Yang swiftly ordered them to hide the guard's body. Outside, instructors Todd and his partner were approaching. Standing close by, Jake quickly catches on to the plan and quickly grabs the instructor they need to keep hidden. Meanwhile, Roman, remembering his allies' orders, brings 2 more recruits over. And even though Yan is not sure if they can be trusted, his partner swears by the recruit's loyalty. Leaving the room, Roman asks if Yan plans to use these newbies as bait, because if so, he cannot take them along. Todd and Jake tell him not to worry, insisting they will never get caught and are ready to die here. Yan understands, but any noise means trouble. If they are heard, they are done. Yan, leading the way, looks completely serious as he tells everyone to keep their eyes forward. The 4 of them approach the massive closed doors, and from right behind them, the young recruit calls out to all his allies who join the escape, standing in front of the doors. Yan explains that opening them alone is impossible, which is exactly why he needs all these helpers to back him up. Their bizarre plan to slip out of the dormitory and reach the restroom requires passing these heavy double doors, but to actually make that happen, the escapees have to trigger 2 highly specific plates on the floor. Once the main doors are activated, 1 person must stay behind to hold down the manual switch for the next step of this high-stakes prison break. 2 other recruits have to slip inside the newly opened chamber. Their next task is to trigger the outer switch so the rest can safely pass through. Yan knows he cannot do this alone, and Roman is already checking if Jake is ready, promising to give the signal and help out. Stepping firmly onto the designated floor panels, the team holds their breath and tries to trigger the mechanism. Several agonizing seconds pass, but the massive doors stay stubbornly shut. Just when panic starts to set in, their desperate bid for long-awaited freedom finally succeeds, and the towering gates of the chamber swing open. Pushing forward, Yan orders Todd to follow him, leaving Roman and Jake at the controls, but Roman demands to know how long they must wait. The confident recruit 974 does not even look back, simply promising a quick signal. With that, Yan slips away, leaving the doorways where they are supposed to go dark and deserted, which deeply worries the remaining trio. Roman stares ahead, visibly on edge, because too much time has passed without any word from Yan at all. The lack of a signal is making the senior recruit lose his mind. This suffocating silence stretches on, and the heavy darkness creeping in terrifies the anxious trio, who are desperate for their freedom. Suddenly, the blink of an eye, the heavy door slams shut with a loud crash, leaving Roman in utter, bitter disbelief. The furious recruit slams his fist hard against the red door, cursing Yan with everything he has got. Battering the metal with both hands, Roman shouts that Yan must have planned to abandon them right from the start, flashing back to Yan's calm expression. Roman curses his own stupidity, realizing he should have seen through it all as he recalls how Yan volunteered to go first. A familiar voice suddenly echoes through the dark, cutting off his bitter thoughts. Yan whispers for Roman to follow, peering through the narrow gate crack. Roman is absolutely certain of it. It was definitely Yan's voice. But just beyond the heavy threshold, a mysterious shadow suddenly appears. It is Recruit 274, who simply refused to stay put. The gates slam open. There stands Yan, looking incredibly grim and stern. He heard them whispering. They thought he had abandoned them all. But the fresh, dripping blood on Yan immediately makes them highly suspicious. Remembering Todd, they demand to know where the blood came from. Stepping forward, Yan quickly tells them to stay calm. He was cursed. That curse delayed him, and everything went wrong, deeply shocking Roman. The junior recruit only wanted to slip sleeping pills in the bait. But the plan failed completely, leaving his senior comrade Roman utterly stunned. Moving onward, they spot a massive, terrifying wolf lying in the field. Its jaw hangs slack, revealing massive fangs. The beast gave Yan trouble. He needed extra time. Roman is shocked by the predator's sheer size. Roman urges them to keep moving. Before long, the runaways arrive. At an old, abandoned restroom, so far, everything is going to plan. Through a crack that Yan carved into the worn building wall, the fugitives finally catch a glimpse of the world outside their camp. Evening has fallen, the sun has set, and everything is completely quiet. The dark tree canopies blend silently into the deep shadows of night. But get this, out of nowhere, the dirt itself begins to stir. Suddenly, a pale human hand bursts from the soil, reaching upward. The terrifying sight makes the fugitives let out a quiet, panicked cry. Yan leaps out first, checking if they went in the right direction. Meanwhile, Roman frantically begs Todd and Jake to pull him out quickly. Yan quickly climbs to the top of the hill, scanning their surroundings. There is no sign of pursuit, but the instructors could awaken. Roman walks over to Yan, who is quietly staring at the stars. A sudden, easy escape feels wrong, leaving Roman feeling deeply uneasy. But the 274th recruit is spellbound by the gorgeous sky. He disagrees with Roman, feeling like an eternity has passed since they ran. Transfixed, he tells his companion about the immense time they have spent. Sprawling forests and majestic mountain peaks rise all around them now. Yan marvels at the fresh air, realizing how long he was locked away. The other three catch up, standing silently behind their quiet leader. Roman asks if their nightmare is finally over once they leave this place. Yan warns them not to let their guard down. This is only the beginning. With an intense, knowing gaze, the young recruit is completely certain. Reaching into his pocket, Yan pulls out the mysterious pendant he found. He stares down at the cold metal, hesitating to open it just yet. Finally, he clicks it open, revealing a worn photo of his family. He silently promises to do whatever it takes to reclaim that lost past. Their real journey starts tonight, but there is no time to waste. Yan turns to his allies, asking them to listen to him very closely. Those who fled for their freedom now find themselves lost inside the vast Atrian forest. It is packed with massive redwoods, which usually grow in the mountainous northern empire. Mapping out the plan with small toy pieces, Yan points to their location in the deep woods and says they can escape in 2 days. Although Roman thinks they should hide here, the senior recruit has other ideas. He believes these tall sequoia trees offer perfect cover, and his companion agrees. But he quickly reminds him that monsters roam here, and Yan is absolutely certain of it. He knows the organization is already searching, and finding them is just a matter of time. If they stay in these dense woods, they will eventually get caught by the pursuit squad. The hunting party has about 20 trained fighters, and if they locate the group, it is over. It will mean certain death for everyone. Yan has only one real strategy to improve their odds. They must split up and scatter, forcing their pursuers to divide their forces as well. By dividing into smaller groups, they can thin the enemy numbers and make their escape. Each of them will only have to handle 5 enemies, vastly increasing their chances of survival. A highly frustrated Roman realizes this plan basically turns him into direct bait. The hunters will target him first, since he holds the highest rank among the recruits. Yan looks at his partner, agreeing that nobody actually wants to play the role of bait. But extreme caution is necessary right now. The nearby assistants exchange highly anxious, terrified glances. Yan warns them frankly that staying grouped up together will only lead to certain death. This tactic is a necessity. Yan looks closely at his silent companions once again. Recruit 974 suggests they immediately scatter in all different directions. He waits to see if anyone has questions. Yan's sharp moves do not go unnoticed. His observant comrade Roman is watching closely, but one detail still completely confuses him. Roman points down at the game board on the grass that became their escape map. He looks closely at the numbers carefully marked on every single toy piece. Annoyed, Roman wonders why only his piece has such an unpleasant label. The stars shine. Yan sees they have no real objections. And of course, Roman is not happy about getting completely ignored like this. Having received no answer, the frustrated senior recruit gives Yan a cold, sarcastic thank you. Yan listens in silence, casting a brief glance back at his annoyed comrade. One of the escaping assistants speaks up, pointing out Yan's crucial role in their survival. Without him, they never would have escaped that brutal squad, which felt like pure hell. Pulling down his hood, a blond guy with an empty left eye socket looks forward. He promises to repay this debt, hoping Yan will recognize him when their paths cross again. Yan looks solemnly at this unexpected ally, remembering the young man's name is Jake. Until now, he had treated Jake like just another ordinary recruit in their unit. Behind that completely blank, expressionless face, Jake clearly has his own reasons for risking everything. Roman cuts into the quiet conversation, telling Jake to stop joking about future reunions. He has absolutely no intention of ever seeing any of them again after this escape. Yan is slightly taken aback by this attitude. He calls his senior comrade a capable leader. But he is also a cold, callous person, which deeply disappoints the 12th recruit. Sure that they will have nothing left to say later, Roman urges them to move. He wants everyone to focus on getting out of this forest without causing more trouble. Widening his eyes at his companion, Yan somehow feels like an old, tired man. He looks around at the dark forest, wondering what their future will actually hold. Yan looked at his senior comrade and considered him a degenerate, which surprised him. The men who had risked everything for freedom finally reached the same conclusion. Their ally Roman was completely right, gathering in a tight circle to swear a solemn oath. The group listened closely to Yan. He warned them never to meet like this again. Soon the clearing fell completely empty. The escapees vanished, and Yan bolted straight ahead. He charged forward with all his strength, pushing through the thick undergrowth. He ran. He ran on, hoping his allies in the breakout were also sprinting toward safety. They were all racing toward freedom, with fierce determination burning in his eyes. The youth pressed onward toward the clean, free life he always wanted. To make it happen, he activated a secret trump card, the divine breath of the dragon. This freshly awakened skill flooded Yan's legs with heat, granting him incredible speed to traverse the woods. To push his extreme velocity even higher, he unlocked yet another speed boost. He unleashed the wings of the windbird, leaving a trail of glowing golden dust. This flash of movement left bright tracks on the massive sequoia he just climbed. Standing at the very top, Yan looked down at the glowing evening forest below. But his body was reaching its limit. Just breathing evenly became a massive chore. His lungs burned, but he managed to force his broken system to keep going. He manually rerouted his mana through his damaged veins, bypassing the broken vessels. This complex energy technique was his only hope. This strange kid knew better than to rely on helpless, frightened little children. He stood there in his dirt-stained clothes after a grueling battle. Honestly, he felt just as completely miserable and pathetic as those poor kids. But as the commander of the 5th Special Squad, a god of espionage, he wanted to see her real level, and he was going to find out. Meanwhile, guards climbed the fortress stairs, whispering about the worrying lack of news. The search party had been gone way too long. Those runaways needed capturing fast. Red-robed mentors pacing the cold stone corridors shared the exact same worry. They needed those runaways locked up before a certain terrifying figure returned. Yes, the infamous unhinged instructor from the palace, speak of the devil. That crazy man was already back, placing a heavy hand on a guard's shoulder. Instant panic, the trembling subordinate shot a nervous glance at his boss. He stammered with a shaking voice, trying to claim he did not mean it that way. Chief Instructor Damien's fake, pleasant smile instantly vanished. He glared coldly at the idiot who dared to speak out of turn. Then Damien flashed his signature grin, the kind that meant someone was about to die. He patted the recruit instructor on the shoulder, telling him to just relax. He whispered that everything was perfectly fine and mistakes happen to everyone. Walking past the columns, the terrified man kept begging for forgiveness. He kept babbling, but Damien calmly brought up his comment about the Emperor's anger. The now silent instructor tried to run, but guards immediately blocked his path. Damien personally dragged the offender away, questioning him about the recruit roll call. He asked if managing a simple list was really that hard for him. The shaking target of his anger begged his boss not to worry. He promised the hunt group would drag the escapees back very soon. With a dangerously cold smirk, Damien asked exactly how they planned on doing that. The poor subordinate stared back, completely missing the danger. Simple question. Damien stared down at his subordinate with an evil glare. His eyes burned, madness and horror swirled in his pupils. Suddenly, the chief instructor slammed his hand onto the man's shoulder. Just like that, the poor mentor collapsed under his grip. He fell hard, his legs twisting in completely unnatural directions. The unfortunate instructor writhed in absolute agony on the ground. Meanwhile, Damien coldly blamed him for failing to stop the escape. Nearby guards heard their boss furiously accuse his terrified subordinates. They failed to notice the escape tunnel or the stolen supplies. Looking up with a tormented gaze, the instructor begged for mercy. He pleaded desperately for just one more chance to fix everything. Instead, the leader brutally stomped on him with his heavy boot. Damien stared down, cold and completely unmoved by his pain. He bluntly told them their time at this job was over. Agony took over. The broken mentor could only pray for salvation. But it was too late. Damien looked like a true monster. A dark, demonic essence seemed to take over his entire being. Walking away from his victim, the chief instructor prepared to leave. He ordered a nearby guard to send the pursuit squad immediately. Fresh blood stained the floor as Damien promised to watch over everything much closer. He would watch everyone, especially the newly arrived recruits. Thinking of that new cohort, a ruthless smile crossed his face. There were some highly interesting targets he could not wait to break. Deep in the Atrian forest, a heavy fog rolled in steadily. This thick mist provided the perfect cover for the escaping boys. And look, squad number 3 was already hunting the deserters. Moving with dangerous speed, the trackers pushed through the brush. They left nothing but crushed grass in their wake. Every single tracker wore the group's signature red mask. Suddenly, the squad captain raised his hand to signal a halt. He commanded his 2 subordinates to halt their advance right there. The 3 trackers froze, hiding in the shadow of a massive tree. The younger recruits worried they had lost the trail. Removing his red mask, the leader dismissed their worries without a thought. He assured them that the hunt was actually going perfectly. Yet squad leader Kelly still felt a deep, nagging doubt about it. Kale figured they were fine since the target was an amateur. He figured things were simple because they only chased target number 974, though Andre suspected otherwise. The tracks clearly led this way, yet some pointed elsewhere. Then the leader spotted a torn shred of fabric on a branch. It proved just how desperately the runaway was trying to move. According to his men, Kelly was just being overly paranoid again. They joked that their captain never had time for his girlfriend. Kelly simply stared ahead, unable to shake his quiet anxiety. It could have been a simple premonition, but a deep dread clung to him. He completely missed the faint, glowing threads stretching quietly through the dark forest. Still waiting, they stood beneath the massive tree trunk. They tried to scan the area as thick fog crawled higher around them. Kelly ordered his men to lock down Yan before he could escape deeper. His hunters moved instantly, eager to finish the job. Chael figured this was a simple hunt, just bag the target and leave. But Roman, he remained a complete wild card. A kid carrying 12 on his tag, Andre turned to ask his ally. Glowing blue eyes slipped right behind him unnoticed. Before he could even speak, strong hands clamped over his mouth. Hauled up leaves rustled in a cruel whisper, warning the final 2 men left standing on the damp soil below. Chael turned around to ask about the kid's level, expecting Andre to answer. Total silence, his partner had vanished into the mist. Whispering Andre's name, Chael failed to spot a shadow stepping from the dark. A cold blade gleamed in the assassin's grip, the mist kept swallowing everything. The giant trees stood as silent judges. Our silent ghost had taken down his prey effortlessly. Now only the squad leader remained. Kelly was venting his growing frustration. His men acted like they were out on a picnic. Loud voices would only scare the runaways off. The captain spun around angrily. He barked out the names of the squad mates who had just walked off. No reply. 2 veteran killers had disappeared completely. How could 2 elite fighters just drop off the map like that? Glowing lines of a massive trap started to light up the dark canopy. That heavy dread from earlier was real. Kelly stood entirely alone now, stripped of his allies in seconds. He pushed the rising panic down, even if recruit number 12 was here. No rookie could ever match an instructor. As he recalled the dangerous number 974, a pale hand slowly emerged from the deep shadows behind his back. It sliced clean through the quiet air, aimed directly at Kelly's throat. Pure instinct, he leaped back to avoid the strike, unleashing a vicious spinning kick into the empty air. His heavy blade cleaved straight through a massive wooden trunk near him. Twisted fury, he glared blindly into the thick fog. He spat out warnings at the unseen killer who dared challenge him twice. But the silent specter struck again, wrapping a thick cord around Kelly's neck. No air, the leader clawed desperately at his neck. The killer threw the rope over a high branch, pulling it tight. Gasps of pain cut through as his life slipped away. A young hidden fighter watched, feeling a deep dread. But there was absolutely no way to save the dying captain now. He could only stare at the fresh tracks left in the mud. A single branch carefully placed by strangers, not left to chance. The unseen hunter set his trap, waiting patiently for the elite search party to walk right in. Kelly clutched his neck. He still could not believe they fell to that monster, recruit number 974. Holding the deadly rope, Yan heard his rival's final, desperate warning. Capturing the deserters was impossible. The squad had completely failed. Kelly dragged his heavy legs, desperately trying to call his subordinates. It was over. The unfortunate guy fell silent, and his hunt ended. The third squad was wiped out. Meanwhile, the white fog kept creeping, slowly swallowing up more and more of the dark woods. Yan spotted the gleaming blade, left behind by the fallen commander. Instantly deciding to claim the heavy weapon, he knew this would be extremely difficult. But mastering this technique was his only real ticket to survival. With a cold, determined gaze, the young recruit looked ahead. He had to get out of this hellish forest before the fog cleared and exposed him. Looking around, Yan noticed a nearby tree drenched in fresh blood. The metallic scent was everywhere. The hunting dogs would easily smell it. They would track the scent instantly. He had to act fast. To mask his trail, he decided to use pungent silo grass. It was a revolting plan, but it made escaping much easier. Yan knew the berries were poisonous, and the leaves smelled atrocious. To maximize his camouflage, he planned to chop the plant up, smearing the pungent green juices over every inch of his skin. Even tracking hounds absolutely detested this scent, ensuring they would lose his trail. With his scent completely masked, they would never find him here. But he had to hurry. The heavy daylight was rapidly approaching. Once dawn broke, even his advanced camouflage net would not save him. Suddenly, something caught his eye and he froze, looking ahead suspiciously. In the distance, a dark column of smoke drifted into the sky. Something was burning out there. Scaling a high branch, Yan looked closely. Ahead of him, he saw those idiots, Jake and Todd, actually setting up a campfire. They assumed their pursuers would never expect a fire. What an absolute joke. Yan watched the smoke drift. Frankly, it was none of his business. Not gonna lie, those fools were perfect bait, and their stupidity only helped him. If the search party caught them, it would buy him precious time. A memory flashed back to the moment they parted in these woods. They had sworn never to meet again, yet Yan ignored his rules. Ignoring his own survival instincts, he leaped down from the tree. He sprinted toward the smoke. Keeping those fools alive actually served him. Their survival was the perfect distraction to keep himself safe. His legs surged with a sudden, almost electric burst of power. He had to reach them before the hunters found their camp. But as he ran, a sudden, icy chill gripped Yan's entire body. He sensed something terrifying directly behind him, forcing him to halt. It was the unmistakable, bone-chilling presence of death itself closing in. After endless battles, Yan finally realized someone was standing behind him, watching. In that final second, he felt the cold touch of a massive snake wrapping around him. The giant predator opened its massive jaws, making the fugitive's fate look completely sealed. But then a voice suddenly speaks up, saying how glad they are that. Yan was caught. Hearing this, the young recruit's eyes go wide with pure shock. He never expected this. As he stares at a nearby butterfly, the speaker keeps talking, admitting that Yan had seemed like an interesting fellow from the very beginning. The little yellow butterfly flutters its wings gently, resting on the fresh green grass. The stranger sighs as if disappointed, complaining that Yan has not fully revealed his potential. During this bizarre speech, the fleeing cadet feels a powerful wind and looks back. Standing right there behind him is not some wild serpent, but his actual chief instructor. It is the smiling chief instructor, Damien, whose sharp gaze never lies. Damien hadn't seen the 974th recruit in ages, and Yan is utterly stunned. Yan has no idea why his mentor is here, staring back with his sharp violet eyes. He refuses to trust Damien or his smooth words after this sudden, unexpected appearance. Suddenly, the dark smoke in the woods vanishes, replaced by a strange, crackling lightning. Bright bolts flash across the dark sky as the fugitive cadet stands frozen. Chief Instructor Damien watches Yan, surprised that the young recruits could pull this off. The two of them face each other in the quiet forest clearing, tension rising by the second. Yan keeps his eyes locked on his mentor, desperately searching for any path of escape. This was never supposed to happen. Yan is completely lost in his own wild thoughts. He simply cannot comprehend how the chief instructor managed to track him down here. Before launching his escape plan, Yan was absolutely sure his mentor would return much later. He calculated everything, expecting Damien to be delayed far away from the squad's base. Yan had even heard rumors about Damien causing massive riots inside the Imperial Palace. Rumors said his mentor was thrown in prison, making his sudden appearance highly suspicious. Then a shocking thought hits the fleeing recruit. He changed the future. He altered destiny. A memory of his secret meeting with Roman flashes in his mind. Meeting the 12th recruit made him wonder if his choices reshaped the timeline. Thinking back on his encounters with Lena Beowulf and Roman, Yan searches for answers. But analyzing his interactions with the other recruits, he realizes he did nothing to Damien. In his mind, his small moves have created entirely different ripples in history. These cracks in the timeline are completely unlike anything he had witnessed in the past. Because of his intervention, the set future of this world has been shattered. Damien breaks Yan out of his deep trance with a sudden, playful question. He mockingly asks if Yan plans to throw a mole or a mouse this time. It is a sharp callback to the past, leaving the young cadet deeply frustrated. He has to admit that their grand escape plan is now an absolute failure. They both recall the strange mole that was spotted near the 12th recruit. Damien gently scolds Yan, mockingly asking why he thought he could ever escape. Still, the chief instructor is genuinely impressed by how easily Yan handled things. He cannot believe the rookie let the target slip away right under the 12th recruit's nose. That incredible reaction time has caught the attention of Damien's own shadowy master. From high above, this powerful leader had been quietly monitoring the entire sequence. Driven by absolute curiosity, the head of the dark group decides to make a move. Back on duty, Damien remembered Roman lying broken on the ground after colliding with that giant mole, deciding this hellhole was only meant for absolute pests. The other recruits silently watched the whole scene, becoming witnesses to the brutal incident. Standing among them was the 974th recruit, Yang, who kept his eyes on both the chief instructor and Roman. Damien realized there was an interesting kid in this batch. Looking right back at the terrifying instructor, Yang turned things over in his head. What just happened was incredibly reckless. It was a massive, foolish risk on his part. He had no idea how much the timeline had shifted, and now everything was going completely sideways. Even so, nothing was completely set in stone yet, especially with this instructor, a legendary warrior destined to be known as the continent's three swords. Yang's wide eyes burned with intense heat, looking ready to charge into a desperate life-or-death struggle against his pursuer. Meanwhile, Chief Instructor Damien stood perfectly calm, wearing a mocking smirk and finding this entire display incredibly amusing. The young recruit glared back at his terrifying opponent with deep, burning suspicion. Damien simply burst out laughing, clapping his hands together in a very cheerful mood. He found this bizarre tension with the young recruit to be absolutely wonderful. It had been ages since some crazy kid actually dared to plan his assassination. Grinning, the instructor asked the boy to explain exactly how he planned to murder him. While Damien expected them to just flee into the woods, this twist left him completely speechless with amusement. Clutching his stomach, the elite special forces leader covered his eyes with his hands, the elite special forces commander, playfully apologizing to Yang for not realizing his genius right from the start. But the instructor had no intention of ending things here, offering the escaped recruit unique golden opportunity. In a flash, Damien's entire demeanor turned deadly serious. His playful smirk vanished instantly as he made a wild proposal: kill him. Yang would win the total, unrestricted freedom he so desperately craved. Stunned by such an insane offer, the young recruit stared at the powerful commander in absolute disbelief, his mind racing for any kind of response. Slipping back into a warm, friendly tone, Damien noticed the sudden shift in Yang's eyes. The commander had never encountered a recruit quite like this kid before. This bottom-tier trainee had somehow managed to slay a dangerous demonic beast. On top of that, he completely wiped out the elite pursuit squad sent after them. Extreme patience, courage, and calculations were far from trash-tier qualities, especially since the kid ended up tying his own pursuers up like captured animals. As far as Damien was concerned, Yang was practically born for elite black ops. It was the kind of terrifying talent only the absolute best should harbor. With proper training from seasoned killers, this boy would easily become an unstoppable, bloodthirsty monster on the battlefield, armed with elite training. Wearing a demonic red mask and sporting those killer eyes, Yang would have no equal under heaven. Hearing these heavy words, Yang stood frozen in tense silence, completely overwhelmed by the gravity of such a massive proposal. An overwhelming, suffocating pressure suddenly crushed down on him, making his knees tremble. His legs buckled completely. Strikingly, the young recruit who just craved ultimate freedom dropped hard onto the dirt, ready to beg. He bowed low, crying out for mercy, waiting silently on his knees. The chief instructor remained silent, merely staring down at his subordinate. Damien was genuinely surprised by this completely unexpected turn of events. He stood speechless, staring at the fugitive cadet crying on the ground. Yan wept, pleading and asking Damien if he was truly their instructor, claiming his eyes were too bad to recognize the man before him. Insisting he never wanted to flee, Yan explained how they dragged him out. They threatened him, promising never to leave him alone until he did their bidding. Just as they left, the instructor suddenly showed up. As night fell, Damien asked if Yan had truly been forced into this. Yan nodded, shifting all the blame onto the 12th recruit. The kid apparently spent every single day cursing the chief instructor. Closing his eyes, Damien quietly listened to the runaway cadet's excuses. Did he really think he could slide a cheap lie past his superior? Upon hearing this, the 974th recruit froze in total shock. Desperate to look convincing, Yan burst into a fresh wave of bitter tears. He wept openly, trying to beg the chief instructor for mercy. But Damien remained dead calm, keeping his sharp eyes locked on the trainee. With a sharp wave of his hand, a blindingly bright light erupted. Damien still could not comprehend the strange actions of this bizarre cadet. As he gripped a sharp, pointed weapon, Damien kept his guard up. He assumed Yan was trying to lower his guard with such a primitive trick. Staring at the crude device with mock admiration, the chief instructor felt disappointed. But get this, things instantly shifted into high gear. The sharp tip of the weapon was suddenly inches from the mentor's eye. With a swift dodge, the deadly blade flew right past Damien's head. The sneak attack was close, a hidden strike meant to catch him off guard. Yan's throwing knife sliced through the air, leaving 2 light scratches on his cheek. Still, Damien expected nothing less from a cadet talented enough to escape camp. But when the instructor looked back up, his target had already vanished. He vanished, Yan had successfully achieved his ultimate goal of escaping. Leaping high above, the boy prepared to strike the seemingly oblivious instructor. The chief instructor stopped smiling, his face hardening with pure irritation. He glared up at the insolent brat who dared to challenge him. Yan's eyes burned with a fierce desire to crush his opponent. It began, 15 dark shadows rose as Yan launched his assault. He unleashed a devastating strike, but the powerful instructor effortlessly blocked it. Parried, the brutal shockwave surged straight back into the recruit. The toll of the clash was instant, leaving Yan's leg badly cut and bleeding. Squinting through the dust, he could no longer see Damien's clear silhouette. He realized the instructor was using a deadly shroud of black fog. Keeping a sharp eye out, Yan spotted the darkness racing toward him. Like a devastating black tornado, the mist threatened to tear everything apart. The violent black tempest swept across the battlefield, rushing directly at the young trainee. Swirling fog and blinding light merged, aiming to swallow the brave recruit whole. Yet Yan kept his cool, never taking his eyes off the deadly threat. The dangerous element kept pursuing him, leaving absolutely no room for escape. Yang drew his sharp blade, determined to keep fighting this incredibly powerful enemy. He hoped to defeat him. The moment Yang touched the weapon, the blade began to glow. Now fully prepared, Yang stepped up to engage his opponent, utilizing a secret technique. This technique targeted the five senses, unleashing a sudden, blindingly bright light. The bright flash worked in his favor, building a protective web of light to defend himself against Chief Instructor Damien. The escaping recruit, Yang, acted fast. He performed a swift swallow throw, but his dagger simply could not withstand the heavy strain and shattered, deeply disappointing the young fighter. The dark mist began to shrink, settling close to Yang as Damien finally spoke up. Damien, speaking in his normal voice, brought up his promise to let him go. But as the chief instructor of the Special Forces returned to his human form, he decided to break his word. Stepping out of the thinning magical mist, Damien stared at Yang. He had no intention of letting such an intriguing recruit leave. Damien praised Yang, saying they should keep playing games so he would never get bored. With that, Damien would never be bored. Yang kept his eyes locked on his powerful foe. The 974th recruit thought Damien looked like a rabid dog. Suddenly, Yang's gaze locked onto a single spot. He noticed something truly shocking. It was both incredibly strange and painfully familiar, right there on the right side of the neck and chest of Chief Instructor Damien. Yang caught sight of a pattern. It was a symbol he recognized, flashback to 22 hours before the escape when Yang sat alone in his cell, with bright torches illuminating the dark, quiet corridor. Inside the junior recruit dormitory of the notorious Donhell Special Forces unit. The nightly roll call was over, and the duty officer had cleared the area. With his escape plans finalized, Yang sat quietly on his bunk, reflecting. Knowing today would be his final night here, he longed to return to his family, yet the young man knew absolutely nothing about them. His only remaining clue was the worn, metallic pendant cradled in his hands. He stared down at the picture of a boy with his parents. Yang quietly vowed to find them. He would find his family and live a normal life, but mid-thought, something occurred. The young recruit noticed a sudden change in his most precious possession. A piece of the old pendant had cracked and crumbled away, his only clue. Seemingly ruined, yet looking closer at the broken edge, he saw a hidden detail. Tucked inside the damaged metal was a detailed engraving that made his heart race. He studied the tiny fragment intently, realizing exactly what it represented. The young soldier realized this emblem was actually his family's lost coat of arms. Yang traced the mysterious pattern etched deep into the core of the pendant. He couldn't fathom why it was hidden, but there had to be a reason. Still, this discovery brought a sudden wave of hope to the young recruit. Having a family coat of arms meant they weren't mere commoners or slaves. They held real status. If Yang could locate anyone who recognized this crest, he would finally have a direct lead to tracking down his missing relatives. That was his plan back then, but right now in the present he sees the exact same pattern marked on the skin of Chief Instructor Damien, his family's crest. The very symbol of Yang's lineage was inked directly onto his fierce commander. This realization strikes the young recruit. Damien strips off his outer shirt and walks toward Yan. The boy stops, making the instructor think. He has surrendered, but Yan is only staring at that mysterious pattern. He cannot believe this powerful instructor might actually be a member of his own family. Damien is annoyed by the lack of fear. The battle is just getting fun. Grinning wildly, the chief instructor steps closer and whispers that Yan is about to die, but Yan responds instantly with a devastating, lightning-fast counter punch. The heavy strike nearly blinds Damien and forces him back. Yet, despite the clean hit, the hardened instructor holds his footing easily. Leaving Yan worried that his best shot missed, Damien just smiles, waving his left hand. He praises the impact, curious where this recruit learned such deadly combat skills. Now, it is the veteran's turn to show off his real power. Unleashing his dark magic, Damien summons black and red energy tendrils from the earth. The sinister shadows erupt upward with terrifying force. Yan immediately recognizes the deadly manifestations, a shadow sword and a black dagger. The dark armaments launch a brutal assault, but Yan's reflexes are incredibly sharp as he evades every strike, but mid-leap, a shadow blade snags him, and the dark dagger rips through his pants without drawing any blood. Still, those magic swords keep raining down. Yan has no intention of dying herein. A mock battle, hitting the dirt, the 974th recruit realizes Damien is merely playing with him. If the instructor were serious, Yan would already be dead. He just needs to wait for a lapse in his opponent's focus to make his escape, but doing so means never learning the truth behind the pattern on Damien's chest. He must know if this man is connected to his lost bloodline, and get this, a massive rebellion is brewing across the continent, destined to tear down 10 kingdoms and wipe out the aristocracy, threatening the crown itself. Yet the emperor of this land is destined to crush the uprising, using the power of his legendary sword. Obliterating every traitor, the ruler will not stop at executing the rebel leaders and their families. He intends to burn all his political rivals to ash. The devastating fires will burn for weeks, remembered as the 20-day sunset, sparked by none other than the previous emperor's own bastard son. Endless rumors will surround this failed coup, but the complete truth is lost forever, as every historical record of the event was reduced to ash. The mastermind behind this chaotic plot, the instigator of the entire bloody conflict, is doomed to face a gruesome execution. Yet those who survived the war will always remember him as the legendary Three Swords of the continent. But right now, he is simply known as the ruthless chief instructor. At this brutal Special Forces training center, back in the present, Damien approaches Yan, noticing the young recruit is completely distracted. His mind seems to be elsewhere. If Yan's family is truly tied to this looming rebellion, then his relatives are in grave danger of being wiped out completely. To protect them, he must keep his true identity hidden. He decides to put his escape on hold, choosing instead to win Damien's trust. He needs to make himself indispensable to the man. The young recruit stares. He stared at the chief instructor standing before him, suddenly remembering a key detail. This would help him pull off his plan. Meanwhile, darkness settled over the woods. As their fierce clash dragged on, Yang openly praised the chief instructor's sheer skill. He admitted he never expected to be chased down. Damien smiled, clearly enjoying the compliment. Hearing his subordinate speak so highly of the elite squad leader made him quite proud. The man felt truly appreciated, but just as Yang was preparing to say more, the chief instructor suddenly cut him off, forcefully slamming a hand over Yang's face. Muffling him completely, the enraged instructor violently threw the 974th recruit away. The poor guy was sent flying straight toward a massive, solid tree. Wait for it, the vindictive Damien smiled, recalling what he considered a funny joke. Under the dark forest canopy, a strange, eerie glow suddenly began to shine. It illuminated the highest branches, following that brutal strike from the senior instructor. Yang collapsed, groaning into a heap of broken branches, his head hanging low. Damien marched over, grabbing the battered recruit roughly by his uniform. He scoffed that he once thought Yang was a decent kid, but the boy clearly never learned how to shut his mouth. Hoisting Yang up, Damien demands to know if he wants to die right here, but Yang just chuckles, insisting his loose mouth actually holds some pretty valuable secrets. Now the instructor wants to see if there is any truth to Yang's wild claims. Suspended by the collar, the helpless recruit reveals he knows a critical secret about the captain's hidden weakness. This fatal flaw could easily get the captain killed. Hearing this from a runaway caught the seasoned chief instructor completely off guard, instantly freezing him in his tracks. How could this low-level recruit possibly know that? Grinning with pure arrogance, Yang brings up Simon's County and the number 52. The kid knew exactly where to strike, and Damien is visibly shaken by this knowledge. Talk about a massive twist. Hours later, the scene shifts back to the training center. The massive stone corridor with its towering pillars looks familiar to the recruits. It is the same hall 974 once walked. Damien slips a gray glove onto his hand, finding the fit rather uncomfortable. He grumbles that his new outfit is a bit too tight for him. Still, he refuses to swap out his signature uniform. He simply has to deal. Lowering his head with an annoyed sigh, the chief instructor accepts it. There is no point in complaining now. He is ready for business. His loyal assistant catches up as they descend the stone steps together. He tries to report where the other runaways are hiding, but Damien cuts in. He coldly orders them all thrown straight into the mass grave. The subordinate nods immediately. Damien has zero intention of stressing over minor pests. Looking thoroughly irritated, the chief instructor prepares to give one final directive. He opens his mouth to speak, but the words die in his throat. Standing right there in the shadows is an imposing man holding a cane. He dryly remarks that Damien is just pretending to be incredibly busy. Carrying himself with absolute authority, the man demands he show some respect. Frowning, Damien glares at this high-ranking figure who looks down on him. The superior officer openly calls him a junior and criticizes his work ethic. He is a strict, veteran commander who demands total submission. He called Damien lazy, demanding an explanation. Bowing slightly, Damien waited. He asked what urgent business brought the captain here without any warning. Standing before him was the stern, blue-eyed captain, Rodrigo Mayer. The Special Forces commander sat quietly on one of the upper floors. As they spoke, Mayer asked how their training had been going lately. Chief Instructor Damien confidently claimed that his men were working hard. But Mayer doubted him. He had heard very different rumors. Yan's recent opponent spoke of the incredible training center. Their cadets supposedly surpassed the regular squad, but Mayer was skeptical. The captain simply refused to believe it, staring at his colleague. With a piercing gaze, Mayer acknowledged their terrifying potential. Damien disagreed, refusing to lay blame on the squad members. Instead, he suggested punishing the person directly in charge of them. The captain was not angered by this bold verbal attack. He calmly thanked Damien for the advice, promising to consider it. Meanwhile, a guard in white standing behind the commanders grew tense. He felt the faint vibration of mana shifting in the air. Something was indeed moving stealthily behind one of the massive building columns. To the fanged, red-masked guard, this seemed like an absolute miracle. Untrained people would normally pass out, but Damien remained unfazed. He closed his eyes as Mayer mentioned his missed palace appointment. The mentor had ignored a direct summons from the emperor himself. Damien insisted he had much better things to do than attend meetings. He refused to waste time on pretentious meetings, shocking the captain. Mayer could not comprehend anything more important than imperial orders. He started to argue, making assumptions about his subordinate's attitude. He stopped mid-sentence, pausing to study the instructor's face. Damien looked back with quiet focus, waiting for him to continue. But what the captain said next caught him completely off guard. Mayer brought up the noble bloodline, keeping Damien from being executed. Did he skip court because the cadets had escaped the center? It would look incredibly bad if he could not handle his own trainees. The captain told him not to worry, but before he finished, Damien cut him off, claiming Mayer had it all wrong. Walking away from his boss, Yan's opponent stood his ground. He moved past him, flatly denying that any escapees even existed. Rodrigo remained highly skeptical, but Damien quickly brushed it off. He claimed the old man was just suffering from bad hearing. The cadets were simply outside, with their instructors preparing for exams. Then the chief instructor made a bizarre comparison to cockroaches. Silence, the strange comment, left the captain completely speechless. Damien viewed his weak student as nothing but an annoying bug. He would happily crush him under his boot if they ever met. Yet no matter how many bugs he squashed, they just kept crawling forward. The Special Forces captain remained completely silent, offering absolutely no response to him. Damien believes he found their nest. Now he can crush them. Every single one. Right after, the chief instructor bids the captain farewell. He wishes Captain Rodrigo Mayer a safe trip as they prepare to leave. Damien calms down. Seeing the captain looking so utterly confused helps him relax. Honestly, it is time for the old man to plan his own funeral. A white-uniformed guard follows closely behind the departing chief instructor. The fighter who went up against Yan wants to ask him something. He is curious about what was said, because it could be 100% true. Reassuring his boss not to worry, the assistant pulls off his red mask. He is not lying to his partners, and Damien will see the proof soon. The chief instructor looks back with very deep suspicion. He does not buy it, but his assistant remains confident. The subordinate insists that every single claim is absolutely true. Now watch, the scene shifts to Simons County, empty street number 592. Years ago, a young boy used to live in one of these heavy houses. Suddenly, a child's cry echoes, though the surrounding area is dead silent. Standing in this totally deserted and quiet place, a little boy looks around. He begs for the window to open, claiming he has a surprise. Staring straight up at the high attic window, he keeps shouting for them. He caught a massive rat, a cute little thing they must see. This rough street is no place for kids, yet here he is. He keeps pleading for them to slide it open, hoping his friend is home. When absolutely nothing happens, he begins to doubt that anyone is actually inside. Just as he is about to give up, a quiet voice answers. A voice calls him a dummy. He just stands there, staring blankly. The voice complains, wondering why anyone would want to see a rat. Finally, the window creaks open slightly, and a young girl peers out. She pouts, saying she would much rather look at a cute squirrel. This little girl is the captain's daughter, hidden in this abandoned place. In the present, papers clutter a dimly lit desk as a man listens. Yan explains how he grew up playing with that very same girl. The older man nods along, completely absorbing every single detail. In the office, Yan tells Damien about that street where few kids lived. Because of that, everyone knew each other, including the captain's daughter. Listening with his eyes shut, the mentor asks directly about Yan's childhood friend. It is an incredible revelation. She is indeed the captain's own daughter. The young recruit confirms it, and for Damien, this is pure gold. Still, Yan suspected the chief instructor would find it hard to believe. It sounds like a complete and total lie, but Yan must convince him anyway. He knows about the bitter rivalry between the two leaders. The chief instructor and the captain have been enemies for a long time. Damien has spent months combing Simon's County for any sort of leverage. His reaction to the recruit's words proves he is taking the bait. Now Yan has to play his cards right, but the mentor remains skeptical. If Yan knows where the captain's daughter is hidden, what is his game? Is this the mayor's weak spot? Damien insists that he heard this personally. But the chief instructor refuses to believe it. He remembers once when Yang climbed onto a roof and sat near an open window. She told him she would soon have to leave, which deeply upset him. Dangerous people wanted her father. They wanted to kidnap her for blackmail, so her father decided to flee. Just days later, she disappeared entirely, escorted away by mysterious men in black. When Yang later arrived at the training center, he recognized those exact men. They were elite soldiers from a special unit, led by her own captain father. The window of that grand house stayed dark forever, her sweet voice gone. She was never heard from again, listening to this highly intriguing tale. The chief instructor rests his chin on his hand and smirks at him. He finds it hard to believe, yet incredibly convenient for his plans. His subordinate was close friends with Captain Mir's own daughter. Then Yang brings up the bitter tension between Damien and the mayor. He knows the instructor has been hunting for the mayor's hidden weaknesses. It was a wild, almost unbelievable coincidence that Yang knew all this. Yang remarks that the goddess of fortune must really favor Damien. No smiles here. Suddenly, the tension in the room shifts. A sudden flash ignites near the recruit, and Damien glares with raw suspicion. Without warning, he fires a pen across the room with devastating velocity. It slams into the plaster, cracking the wall after grazing Yang's cheek. Leaving a fresh scratch, the recruit stares back with a cold, distant look. Instead of calling it lucky, Damien sees this as a calculated setup. To him, Yang is a spy. The young recruit simply stands there. He silently watches his attacker, a single drop of blood tracing down his cheek. With an incredibly calm gesture, Yang wipes the red smudge from his skin. For Yang, this aggressive line of thinking from the instructor was totally expected. Such massive, convenient coincidences are indeed far too hard to believe. First, the young warrior gathered one clue, and then he grabbed another. He keeps stacking these valuable cards purely to survive this brutal training. Gradually, his oldest childhood memories are forming a complete picture. Now he fully understands Captain Mir's complex relationship with his family. He has mapped out the inner circles of the special unit. Yang even notes the deep-seated rivalry between Rodrigo and Damien. He is carefully calculating which secrets will give him the most leverage. Yang pieces his memories and newly acquired facts together like a puzzle. Every single detail is processed with one goal in mind: survival. Damien is convinced Yang is a spy, but Yang plays a longer game. He is keeping these secrets safe, just in case his escape fails. By masterfully weaving truth with lies, he aims to manipulate the instructor. He wants to keep him trapped between false hope and sudden despair. According to Yang's grand plan, belief and heavy doubt must stay balanced. With this calculated performance, he hopes to tilt the scales of trust. Trust is everything, and there is still more to tell. Yang slowly continues his tale, making sure Damien hangs on every word. Damien stared intently at Yan, the only recruit who knew the location of the captain major's daughter. The young man desperately wanted to prove that trusting a recruit would bring the greatest reward. By playing this high-stakes game, Yan hoped to tip the scales in his favor. Hearing such raw candor, the chief instructor slowly stood up from his desk. Papers lay scattered everywhere as Damien turned his back on Yan and walked away. He stared out the window, searching the deep darkness outside for a moment of clarity. The recruit kept his eyes locked on the instructor, waiting in tense, heavy silence. Yan had no idea if his desperate gamble had actually moved the older man. But when Damien asked if Lady Luck was truly on his side, Yan knew he won. His gamble paid off. He gave Damien a confident nod. Yan boldly compared himself to a walking lucky charm, but his boss quickly cut him off. "Shut up," Damien ordered, still staring quietly out into the cold night. The boss promised to overlook tonight's little stunt, telling Yan to head back and stay silent. Yan realized he had successfully passed this dangerous test, yet he kept his face completely blank. No celebration, not yet. Damien did not buy a single word Yan said. But that was perfectly fine, because the instructor was in no hurry to rush things. Bowing politely, the recruit apologized and wished his stern mentor a restful night. Damien gave a faint nod of approval. Once the office door clicked shut, he was alone. He picked up the thin folder containing the personal file of his mysterious departed guest. A cadet known only by the designation number 974. Other files lay nearby. But the chief mentor knew his fellow instructors would not stay blind for long. Closing his eyes, Damien immediately began questioning the entire training center system. The grading could have failed, but then a highly unusual thought crossed his mind. Looking down at the file of Recruit 974, Damien felt a strange curiosity. The veteran instructor smiled faintly. A single detail had captured his undivided attention. One critical detail. 1 week later, the real action finally began. It was time for the first survival training in the brutal Blade Mountains. This legendary range was notorious for its suffocating, endless forests and crimson swamps. Here, the deadly trial for the kingdom's elite cadets officially kicked off. The emperor himself banned all citizens from ever stepping foot inside. It was a place of pure, unadulterated dread. Deep within the hostile landscape, monsters lurked. Vicious beasts of every shape and size called these unforgiving valleys home. Their constant presence made the entire mountain range a literal death trap. No normal person would survive. Among these legendary terrors is the swamp goblin, a hideous creature whose brutal reputation strikes fear into seasoned elite warriors. Right on cue, one of the raw recruits is forced into a brutal clash with it. He trades devastating blows with the beast, refusing to give an inch of ground. A precise lunge connects, and the hideous goblin feels its strength quickly fade. Bleeding heavily, the monster staggers back. The elite cadet steps in for the kill. Flanked by his 2 squad mates, he delivers a final, fatal blow. The beast collapses dead. As the victor catches his breath, his squad mates celebrate. One laughs confident in their victory, while the other shrugs the danger off. He claims these mountains are nothing special, but the main fighter tells them to hush. Keep it down, he warns, scanning the trees for other predators hunting them. But his teammate remains entirely relaxed, certain the immediate area is completely safe. Completely cleared of monsters, the squad remembered their instructions to stay in these mountains for a full week to pass, and at this rate, success seemed guaranteed. They were bound to pass. The cadet who killed the swamp goblin turned round angrily, reminding his noisy comrade to stay quiet. His friend quickly got the message and apologized. Still, the leader reminded them they had to gather mana and stones in the Blade Mountains, but his teammate was too thrilled about their easy win, totally forgetting the other requirements for passing the test. Even if they survived, their final score depended on how many stones they got. Besides surviving, the eager recruits also wanted to beat the elite cadets from the 4 great families. Soon, the talkative companions had to be silenced. Once more by their leader, who urged them to slow down, while discussing the need to stay vigilant to secure their victory. The guy didn't even notice the massive clawed fingers looming directly over his head. Instantly, they grabbed The coughing recruit by the head. Just like that, recruit number 320 was disqualified from this grueling mountain ridge exam, with their faces twisted in pure terror. His two companions watched the horrific event and their friend's sudden demise. Desperately holding onto their weapons and shields, the recruits in the center tried to back the monster off, completely clueless where this giant beast came from. The terrifying creature's eyes rolled in totally different directions, only intensifying the raw panic of everyone watching on the sidelines. The unfortunate boy was gripped tightly by the giant golden ogre, a beast with the magic of invisibility that allowed it to sneak up on its victim undetected. Next, the monster slammed the cadet hard onto the ground. With its giant paws, the great golden ogre began to demolish everything, continuing to let out weird, incomprehensible growls. The poor recruits of the center simply could not resist the terrible monster. Soon, recruits 345 and 347 were eliminated. A swamp-colored magic ball displayed everything happening to these helpless students inside the Blade Mountains, where deadly monsters roamed. Chief Instructor Damon, who watched this tragic scene unfold for the boys in that dangerous zone, simply laughed and called them trash. Standing on a high platform before the remaining recruits, Damon announced 30 boys had died and warned the survivors to be more careful, since instructors were tired of picking up their cold bodies, ordering the center recruits to get moving. The chief instructor announced they would enter the warp gate every 5 minutes. Faint green light appeared before Damon's two assistants, but they quietly accepted their master's harsh command. Yang, standing among the other fearful students in the squad in terrible physical shape, realized that he too would end up in those cursed lands. The chief instructor was in a great mood, and he quickly ordered his searchers to investigate the location the guy had previously told him about. Inside the old house where Captain Mayer's daughter had once lived, the detectives would find some small traces, but they wouldn't be able to find anything of value. To get closer to the chief instructor, recruit John had to get top marks on this exam. To do that, he had to push his physical limits, but having only mastered half of the divine dragon's breathing technique, his ultimate growth was strictly limited. Climbing the mountain ridge is actually a massive win, and the determined Yan must act fast. The Mountain of Blades hides 2 legendary treasures that no one has discovered yet. If Yan can secure them, his physical strength and speed will reach an entirely new level. Suddenly, Chief Instructor Damien turns to his subordinate, his voice filled with shock. He demands to know if the crazy report they just received is actually true. This sudden shift in mood does not escape the sharp eyes of recruit 974. The instructor looks shaken. Suddenly, Damien and his assistants drop to their knees. The chief barks a sudden order, demanding that all his men show their absolute respect. The sole heir to the throne of the Cabalan Empire steps onto the high platform. Crown Prince Leon Cabalan finally reveals himself, greeted by a heavy silence. Yan watches the scene, his mind racing as he recalls his past life. If he remembers correctly, 500 recruits died during this brutal exam. Nothing this massive happened back then, so why has Crown Prince Leon Cabalan arrived? This is definitely not part of the plan. Recruit Yan stares intently at the royal heir, completely baffled by his sudden presence. The future ruler of the empire has no business being here at this training center. The prince's sudden arrival is something recruit 974 will never forget. As Leon Cabalan greets the recruits in the square, Yan feels a cold dread. This royal face was the last thing Yan saw before his gruesome death in his past life. To him, this prince is a monster who treats human lives like cheap, disposable toys. The agonizing memories rush back, clear as day, while the recruits stare in dead silence. The prince stands before the Special Forces cadets, proudly announcing his grand title. Leon Cabalan demands that everyone acknowledge his royal lineage and supreme authority. The crowd drops to one knee, offering a forced greeting to their future ruler. Forced to bow to his former executioner, Yan looks up with cold determination. He makes a silent vow never to let regret consume his life again. Staring directly at Leon Cabalan's smiling face, a deep, primal rage boils inside him. Boiling anger, the crown prince continues his speech, telling everyone to speak without fear. The prince orders anyone wanting to escape this hell to raise their hands. He promises to guarantee their absolute safety and grant them immediate freedom. Damien stands in tense silence, turning his face away to hide his true reaction. The prince demands to know who was brought here by force, promising them salvation. But Yan remains skeptical, highly doubting these unexpectedly kind words. Staring at Leon Cabalan, Yan cannot comprehend this sudden act of mercy. He speaks of freedom right in front of the ruthless chief instructor. The young recruit seriously doubts if this is the same monster from his past, absolutely wild. We then see a quiet room where a strategic chess match is taking place. An officer reports on the successful invasion led by the 4th Special Unit. Inside the Imperial Palace of Avalon, Yan bows deeply before his emperor. He confirms their victory, reporting the total destruction of the stone mine. The emperor stares quietly out his window, offering brief praise for their success. Still bowing, Yan requests permission to send reinforcements to secure the front. He insists that they must protect the retreating squad to ensure their survival. The emperor looks surprised as Yan explains the harsh reality of the situation. Their current force is too small, meaning none of them will return alive. But the emperor keeps staring outside, leaving his loyal subordinate in cold suspense. He had already made his decision and was preparing to deliver it to the young man. After hearing the brutal order to sit back and do absolutely nothing to help the squad, letting them sacrifice their own lives just to wipe out the enemy, Yang immediately protested. He simply refused to abandon his own soldiers to a meat grinder. They were fighting for the empire, but to the emperor, they were just expendable toys. Every single soul in the land, from the lowest slave to the proudest citizen, and even the high-ranking knights and nobles, was nothing more than a pawn. Every piece on the board existed solely to serve his imperial majesty. That was how Leon Cabalan viewed the world, thousands dying just for one ruler. In the emperor's mind, this was how a perfect empire was supposed to run. Looking back, Leon Cabalan smiled and asked what could be more honorable than giving your life for your sovereign. Yang could only glare at him in disgust. He realized the crown prince was a truly monstrous individual. Yang remembered exactly what kind of monster lay beneath that smooth, royal mask. Addressing the new recruits, the prince pointed out the soft, noble children in the crowd. They wanted easy power, Leon Cabalan shouted, warning them to go home. If they could not handle what would happen once he finally claimed the imperial throne. Yang stood there in absolute disbelief, alongside the stunned recruit right next to him. Even hearing it directly from the heir himself, it made no sense. Staring hard at Leon Cabalan, recruit number 974 wondered if this was really the same man he once knew, and how he had become so cold. The chief instructor assumed the silence meant the cadets were simply frozen in awe. But the prince was only focused on why they were being treated like garbage. Damien tried to explain the necessity of an elite shield to guard the emperor. But those words only drew the immediate, fiery wrath of the young prince. Bowing low, the instructor was ordered to shut his mouth and stop speaking nonsense. The prince insisted that a true ruler must protect his people. No crown stays on a king's head for long if he simply throws away the lives of his subjects. Leon Cabalan could not wrap his head around this twisted kind of power. He refused to sit back and watch such blatant cruelty go unchallenged. Now watch, the prince wanted to tear the entire facility down right then and there. But Damien argued that the camp operated strictly by the emperor's direct command. Hearing the instructor use the law to justify this horror, the prince found himself caught off guard by the sheer depth of the conspiracy. Now he demanded to know if anyone actually wanted this test. If even one person stepped forward willingly, the prince promised he would back down. But among the kneeling ranks, not a single soul raised their hand to volunteer. The silence spoke volumes, and Leon Cabalan wasted no time highlighting it. Damien could only look away, silently cursing the prince as a loud-mouthed populist. Then, out of nowhere, one of the recruits slowly got to his feet. He bowed, apologized to the prince, and spoke up, leaving everyone stunned. Standing tall, recruit number 974 declared his intention to take the test. The prince stared at him, absolutely baffled by this reckless move. But that specific number felt strangely familiar to Leon Cabalan's ears. He knew exactly how horribly the lower ranks were treated here. He clearly wanted to leave, so Yang confirmed the dark rumors about their treatment. The other recruits thought their bold comrade had completely lost his mind. But Yang stood his ground, demanding absolute equality in this test. Regardless of high rank, to avoid canceling the exam, Yang argued they should all be judged equally on the skills needed to rise up. Staring straight at the crown prince, this insanely brave recruit announced he would take the test anyway, having a true goal to chase. After hearing Yang's fearless words, Leon Cabalan stayed silent for a moment, before finally calling out the chief instructor of the squad, Damien. Stepped forward, but the crown prince had already turned his back on him, stating Damien did not deserve such a cadet, closing his eyes. Leon muttered that he would not break his royal promise, ordering the instructor to proceed with the exam. Prince Leon wanted to personally watch the upcoming test. Damien quickly bowed, accepting the royal order. Turning back to the recruits, the chief instructor sharply demanded they appreciate the prince's incredible mercy and give it their absolute all. With that, two instructors in crimson robes approached the nervous group, telling them to pay close attention to how the teleportation gate functioned. First, the recruits would step through the warp gate one by one. This would teleport them straight to the dangerous mountain range used for exams. Once there, instructors would track the coordinates of each scattered participant. But the recruits froze in utter confusion when the mentors gave a warning. They casually warned the recruits not to worry if their bodies split during transport. Right after that casual warning, the instructors called up recruit number 974, pointing him toward the portal. As the nervous recruit took his position, the gate began its loud countdown. With only seconds left on the clock, Yang stood waiting for his turn, preparing to be thrown right into the monster-infested wilderness. He remembered that in his past life, Leon never visited this training ground. But everything has changed now, and Yang realized his own actions must have directly influenced the future emperor, or maybe it was something else. While the young man continued to ponder over the sudden changes in the crown prince, the final seconds ticked down and the magical gate erupted with power. The teleportation triggered, but Yang still could not make sense of Leon Cabalan's strange change in behavior. Suddenly, a blinding white beam shot down from the dark skies onto a completely abandoned mountain ridge. And right there, Yang's face slowly materializes inside a glowing, magical circle. The intense teleportation process was finally wrapping up among the gloomy rocks, and our brave young warrior slowly emerged from the blinding light. Finally, he stepped completely out onto the harsh new terrain. After quickly checking over his limbs, he confirmed they were still intact. Realizing he had been dropped onto a barren wasteland along the ridge, the young warrior decided to search for anything he could use as a weapon. Trekking across the hostile ground, a strangely familiar scent hit his nose. He had officially arrived at Mount Klinka. In the Valley of Winds, the young man instantly recognized that foul, rotten smell. It was sulfur mixed with the valley's dark demonic energy. Then, a suspicious sound echoed. It came from right behind him, making the brave warrior spin around immediately. Spreading its massive claws, a terrifying beast with glowing red eyes lunged forward. It aimed straight at Yang, who was completely unarmed. Meanwhile, in another part of the trials, deep in the mountains of Blades, a massive cockatoo griffin ambushed several young recruits. The beast opened its colossal beak, though armed with sharp swords. The terrified trainees froze up instantly, panicked and fearing for their lives. They wanted to run. The gigantic griffin let out another blood-curdling screech, completely paralyzing the young fighters. But just as all hope seemed lost, a miracle cut through the dread. The monstrous bird took a devastating, fatal strike that absolutely shattered its body. It was completely obliterated, the master of the 15th stage of Dark Soul, Lena Beowulf herself, who had put the beast down with a single, elegant strike. Only then did the trembling trainees recognize the stunning girl standing before them. She was the absolute #1 ranked cadet in the entire academy. After thanking Lena, the relieved survivors looked at their injured comrades. They realized just how lucky they were. They explained that their squad consisted entirely of lower-ranked recruits. Most of them were ranked in the 700s, and many were already badly hurt. They had desperately tried to escape the area, but these brutal monsters blocked every path. Desperate, they begged Lena for permission to tag along until they safely cleared the valley. Lena quietly agreed, mostly because she did not really care one way or the other. Her eyes scanned the dark, misty terrain, searching for any sign of John. She refused to believe that he had already been kicked out of the exam. Remembering how confident he had been, even when facing the Crown Prince himself, Lena simply could not understand his actions. Just then, the second-ranked cadet approached. Cruel Dwight mockingly called her their princess, claiming she was making another foolish mistake. He scoffed, questioning why Lady Beowulf would waste her time with such weaklings. Walking around with these seventh-rate recruits was an absolute joke to him. He warned that she was only exposing herself by protecting these useless idiots. Cruel Dwight did not even consider them worthy of serving as her human shields. He angrily scolded Lena, asking if she wanted to be a babysitter for losers. He sneered that her pity wouldn't help them. Lena told him to watch his mouth. She warned him not to judge a person's worth solely by their assigned rank. But Cruel only laughed, mocking her that the top spot would soon belong to someone else. Lena gave her arrogant classmate a cold, piercing glare, issuing a very quiet warning. Focus only on rank, she warned, and you will miss what actually matters. Deep in their argument, they failed to notice the arrival of the third-ranked cadet. Casa Afrina arrived, immediately criticizing them for fighting during their precious exam time. Calling Cruel short-sighted, Casa reminded them of their true goal. Every single candidate would be graded individually, making internal fighting completely pointless. Dwight scoffed, demanding to know why she also wanted to babysit these weaklings. But Casa believed that a larger group was better suited for handling unexpected crises. Keeping them alive would actually help ensure they all passed this difficult test. She sternly reminded the arrogant cadet of their duty as noble-born leaders. Nobles were expected to guide and protect the commoners beneath them. Mentioning noble blood only earns a malicious sneer from Cruel, who looks down on her. Casa Afrain stares back calmly as her hostile partner glares right at her. Cruel demands to know since when a family of dirty traitors counts as royalty. He mocks her dream of ruling over commoners, demanding some real answers first. She must explain the sins her family committed and tread very carefully. Otherwise, it would be pretty tragic to see the last Afrain end up on the guillotine. Casa just offers a quiet laugh, sarcastically thanking him for his sudden concern. Rebuilding her family is her only focus, completely ignoring his obvious insults. Nearby, another female cadet mentions how incredibly jealous she is of Casa. She reminds the furious Cruel Dwight that his two older brothers hold the power. They bear the family burden, so he shouldn't stress himself over it. This friendly advice only makes Cruel snap. He raises his hand to strike Casa. But before he can land a blow, someone grabs his wrist. Lena Beowulf has arrived. Stepping in just in time, she easily restrains the aggressive guy with a firm grip. Casa just watches, smiling quietly, while the furious cadet spits out more insults. Cruel tries to snatch Casa with his other hand, but his effort fails miserably. Standing firm, Lena calmly tells him to chill out and drop the attitude. Not daring to cross the powerful Lena Beowulf, Cruel can only grit his teeth. He angrily demands that she let go of his arm, violently shaking off her grip. Shoving his squadmates aside, he stomps away from the low-ranking fighters in disgust. Cruel coldly spits that everyone here is totally worthless. Deep in the Blade Mountains, cadets are busy fighting terrifying, high-tier monsters. Trekking alone through the sharp white rocks, Cruel Dwight realizes something. Sticking with these weak losers will only drag him down in the long run. Suddenly, Cruel freezes in his tracks as memories hit him. He recalls his childhood, back when a cold man stood over him, teaching lessons. The man told him never to ask for anything and to live like a dead man. He shouldn't think, just survive. Cruel shakes off the memory and keeps moving. He never expected to recall that day, but the rocky path distracts him. Suddenly he stops. Fresh, crimson blood is splattered across the stone path. Cruel follows the trail with his eyes. It leads straight into the dark rocks. And honestly, the sickening scent of fresh blood here is a massive red flag. If this is a monster's lair, a whole horde could easily ambush them. To stay safe, Cruel quickly hides behind a massive boulder. Peeking out, he spots another recruit standing near a pile of lifeless bodies. The ground is completely covered with the dead carcasses of local monsters. Numerous red goblins lie slain, and Cruel is shocked by this lone fighter's power. He stares intently, trying to figure out how a single recruit pulled this off. But then he notices the guy's face, twisted in a look of pure, savage rage. The stranger holds torn-apart pieces of a red goblin's body in his hands. Cruel watches in absolute disgust as he realizes the lunatic is actually eating them. The wild recruit brings a bloody goblin organ straight to his mouth. In these dangerous Blade Mountains, 2 legendary artifacts are hidden away. Retrieving them is basically suicide with so many monsters around. Now Recruit 974 must somehow retrieve these legendary artifacts to survive. For Yang's plan to actually succeed, he had to figure out how to bring it to life. First, Yang needed to grab one crucial item, but then he suddenly snapped his gaze backward. Something strange was happening over there, demanding his full attention. A horrifying beast with sinister eyes was creeping up to ambush him from behind. Hungry for human flesh, the beast lunged, but suddenly a powerful hand pierced right through the monster's chest and ripped out its beating heart. For this strike, the young warrior utilized the 21st form of his dark spirit. Dragon Flame. Yang glared coldly at the red goblin that dared threats him. Provoking it until it burst into flames, the aggressive beast stood no chance against the far stronger human, screaming in pain as it was completely vaporized. Yang, a recruit of the Special Forces, emerged victorious from this deadly duel, holding monster heart embedded with strange glowing stones, but the battle was far from over, as yet another ferocious red goblin appeared, hungry for blood. Yang looked ahead and saw dozens of similar beasts lurking on the rocks, sharing that same deadly hunger. As their fallen kin, the fearless recruit stared back with absolute determination at the surrounding monsters, actually smiling at his incredible luck. A red goblin glared at the young warrior with blazing, predatory eyes, ready to spring forward and tear him apart at any second. Yang was honestly thrilled that his targets were practically delivering themselves to him, and he instantly assumed a battle stance, crackling with magic, ignoring the opponents' deadly aura. The beasts bared their fangs and lunged at the lone fighter. With mindless fury, locked in combat mode, Yang stood ready to slaughter every last enemy. You see, defeating these creatures yields valuable mana stones. Previously, they were mostly used as simple ingredients for crafting gear, but their true worth was soon revolutionized. An eccentric scholar named Professor Isaac, working at the academy, once published a groundbreaking paper based on years of intense research. In this treatise, Isaac claimed that humans could directly absorb a monster's power and core mana using these very stones. His detailed claims about the insane endurance of orcs, troll regeneration, and the raw physical strength of legendary ogres initially sparked massive outrage. The elderly scholar's academic colleagues dismissed his findings as pure madness, citing the fundamental differences in how humans and wild beasts process magic. Eventually, the academy dean, Neuron, personally confronted Isaac, threatening to fire him from the faculty unless he could provide undeniable proof of his theories. But after testing Isaac's methods himself, the once frail Dean Neuron transformed, gaining massive physical power and validating the research. Once Isaac's claims were officially proven, mages all across the continent were stunned. Flash forward to today, where finding monsters in the wild is far easier than searching deep dungeons. When questioned about the dangers of absorbing these crystals, Isaac casually explained during his lecture that filtering out the toxic corruption was the only hard part. To safely extract it, the scholar highly recommends mixing moon beetle extract with crushed lava stones. Taking a quick sip from his cup, Isaac insisted that raw absorption is actually incredibly simple. You just have to eat them. And that is precisely what our recruit, Yang, was doing right now deep inside the rocky caverns of the Blade Mountains, standing over the bodies of the slain red goblins. He hesitated slightly before taking this insane, desperate leap of faith. That awful taste. Now Yang had to absorb a stone right from the monster's heart. But to pull the mana from the crystal, he actually had to use the beast's own poison. The sheer disgust makes Yang gag, clamping his hand over his mouth. He steels himself for a deadly gamble, the toxic burning starting deep inside. But using the divine dragon's breathing technique, he slowly begins to neutralize the lethal venom. Gradually, the intense pain fades, and the young recruit starts feeling a bit better. This process is going to take real time, and rushing now is out of the question. Meanwhile, descending into the deep gorge at breakneck speed comes recruit number 2, Cruel Dwight. He simply cannot stay out of Yang's business, a twisted grin plastering his face. Cruel Dwight is infamous for his malice, and that smirk says he's up to no good. But below where recruit 974 stood, only emptiness remained. There is only a fading flash of light, leaving the villain puzzled. He never expected a low-tier cadet to survive, but feels entirely untouchable. Confident in his own strength, the villain decides to take the mana for himself. But Yang is completely gone, leaving Cruel Dwight looking around in confusion. While he assumes Yang ran away, he is in for a major shock. Actually, Yang is hiding right behind a nearby rock ledge, watching this absolute scum. To Yang, this guy is far more toxic than any beast in the Blade Mountains. Cruel Dwight sneers, mocking the rumors of desperate savages eating wild beasts raw. But seeing it in person is somehow even more disgusting than he actually imagined. He calls Yang worthless, threatening to beat him to a pulp unless he begs for mercy. If the low-ranker hands over the mana stones, perhaps the noble Dwight family will show mercy. Feigning absolute shock, Yang casually admits he doesn't have any stones left. He already swallowed them all, which only makes the arrogant noble growl in disbelief. Cruel warns him not to lie, claiming he was actually willing to show some pity. But this little savage is just too dumb to save himself, and they are completely alone. Nobody will ever know if a useless pawn gets murdered down here, so hand over the stones. Surprisingly, Yang just nods coldly, a dark grin creeping onto his face. He agrees with the bully. Yes, there really is absolutely nobody else around. You just know Cruel is about to regret completely ignoring Yang's dark warning. He warns the kid not to even think about screaming for help. While the noble is busy barking threats, a strange white stream approaches him. The arrogant second recruit is completely blind to the danger creeping up. In an instant, the energy sweeps right through him, delivering a swift punishment. A massive blue banner bearing a golden crown and cross flutters proudly in the wind. This is the symbol of the prestigious Dwight family, where a young boy once dreamed. He was supposed to inherit everything, but by age 12, he realized the world is scum. Though his right to the family estate was clear, greedy outsiders had other plans. Two corrupt relatives stood over the young boy, plotting to steal his birthright. Terrified he would grow up to take charge, they shipped him off under false pretenses. They claimed it was for his education, but they threw him into a brutal training camp, leaving him in a filthy, cutthroat dump, expecting him to break or die. But Cruel Dwight survived, and he will never forgive the people who betrayed him. As the rightful heir of the Dwight clan, he vows to burn those bastards to ashes. The moment he escapes this hellhole, his bloody revenge will finally begin. Right there, low-ranking recruit Yang pierces the noble with a magical glow. The guy screams in pure agony from his new wound. This single rocky path is Snake Gorge. It resembles a giant serpent. Absolutely dead zone. No living thing has ever reached the end. The wounded noble sneers. He is furious that Yang dared treat him this way, speaking to him like a common peasant. Unacceptable. Cruel is forced to drag a heavy sack of monster corpses. Bloody goblin limbs stick out. He has no idea what comes next. A thick rope leash is tied securely around the captive's neck. This lets recruit 974 keep full control over his prisoner. While dragging the bag, Cruel assures himself that Yang cannot hurt him. After all, he is the true heir. The captive begs for mercy. Yang simply commands him to shut up and move much faster. Yanking the rope, the Special Forces recruit ignores the noble lineage talk. He hates this constant whining. How long is this going to last? The trek is long. The arrogant lord needs to hurry up. Cruel grumbles and demands to know why he must carry this heavy sack. Yang's blunt reply: it is his simple punishment for being a villain. Still, Cruel understands nothing. Why does the commoner even want these corpses? Shut up, the younger recruit warns him to stop complaining so much. Grinning maliciously, the noble reminds his captor of the imperial laws. Anyone abusing an aristocrat faces execution, still trying to assert his rank. Imperial laws, warning that commoners face severe punishment for abusing any noble. But watch what happens when the high and mighty heir tries to assert his status. Recruit number 2 suddenly gets a massive rock launched straight at his nose. Crashing to the ground, he whines about his broken nose, but Yang coldly orders him up. Turns out aristocrats bleed, just like everyone else. Clutching his nose, Cruel can't even begin to comprehend who this guy is. At that moment, the desperate noble plots a sneaky counterattack to win. He hopes to catch his low-ranking captor completely off guard. Bad move. Things turn out very differently. Cruel screams, warning Yang to stay away. He promises to murder him, but the lower-ranking recruit doesn't care. Yang doesn't listen to a single threat and silently delivers a devastating blow. To his vicious opponent, stunning him, the arrogant noble still hasn't learned his lesson, continuing to scream at Yang not to dare touch him. But Yang doesn't listen. With a completely stony, unreadable expression, the brave recruit continues to beat Cruel. The noble no longer wants any part of this fight, suffering unprecedented humiliation at Yang's hands. The arrogant heir gets a simple explanation on how to protect his face. All he has to do is apologize, but Cruel cannot accept defeat. He couldn't concentrate his magical monoflow during the duel, giving Yang the upper hand, but once his power returns, he plans to execute this commoner. Sensing this, Yang's eyes turn wild as he turns back to look. It is clear the stubborn noble hasn't understood a single damn word. The Special Forces recruit's eyes suddenly ignite with a chilling, fiery glare. He was ready to repeat his threat as the noble heir glared at his captor. Pure malice filled his eyes as he pulled the rope, promising Jan a brutal end. But in the next instant, Dwight softened his angry posture completely. He genuinely respected Jan now, hoping they could become allies down the line. But Jan easily read every single dark thought running through the noble's head right now. He knew speaking up meant getting instantly crushed into the dirt like a cockroach. Jan quietly studied his defeated, aristocratic rival. He was a remarkable soul, absolutely desperate to survive. Yet the energy flows radiating from the Count's air were wildly chaotic. Jan knew of only one terrifying power source that could ever radiate such chaotic energy. Demonic knowledge, it belonged to dark sorcerers who wield forbidden black magic. They siphon raw power directly from the abyss. Even swordsmen who infuse their blades with darkness rise in power incredibly fast. But relying on the dark arts slowly eats away at their minds and rots their bodies. Once that corrupting shadow completely consumes them, the real horror begins. They lose their minds completely, descending into absolute madness. Dwight was once known as the Blood Star, a monster feared for his endless cruelty. He ruthlessly seized control of his family through pure blood. Thinking on this, Jan realized Dwight was likely using that demonic knowledge. However, it was highly obvious the young noble had not fully mastered those powers yet. Dwight desperately begged Jan to remove his collar, promising he would never try to run away. Jan, of course, did not trust a single word he said. Yet dragging a defeated warrior around on a leash like some wild beast felt wrong. Walking a man on a leash would definitely draw too much suspicious attention. So Jan put on a harmless, naive face, pretending to agree with him. So the young recruit unlocked the prisoner's heavy collar, letting it float freely in the air. Dwight gasped in sweet relief, having fully expected to be dragged around like a slave forever. But the young recruit calmly reassured him that his torment was almost over. With a calm voice, Jan announced they had finally reached their destination. The proud aristocrat looked around in complete confusion, having no clue where they were. Everything in this desolate area felt completely foreign. He pointed out the core reason why they had traveled this far. They stood on the very edge of a cliff, overlooking a mysterious stone ruin below. Jan quickly corrected himself on what lay ahead. It was actually a massive and terrifying monster. Dwight simply could not believe Jan had dragged an elite noble to such a terrible place. He could not comprehend why he had been dragged out here just to dump corpses. Dwight quickly finished his grim chore of dumping the bodies. He sarcastically asked if his forced labor had been completed correctly to the recruit's satisfaction. In return, Jan surprisingly offered him some useful advice. Jan looked at his defeated foe with a strange, knowing gaze. The noble stood there, completely unable to comprehend the bizarre nature of the recruit beside him. The monster slayer quietly warned Dwight to run and never look back. His warning was extremely timely because down in the dark abyss, two massive, glowing eyes suddenly snapped open to stare up at them. Down at the bottom, near a massive ruins complex, lay the cold bodies of red goblins. Scattered everywhere, these once terrifying beasts showed no signs of life. They had met their end in this wasteland, then, out of nowhere, chaos. Dark patterns bled onto the stone floor, swirling into a gaping void. Moments later, the grim silhouette of a dark magical crest took shape. The runic pattern pulsed with a bloody red glow, almost as if breathing, and then a chilling voice rang out, demanding answers, a pitch-black demon. Fiend with blazing, hellish eyes emerged, awakened by some fool after ages of slumber. Up on the cliff edge, a young noble stood trembling, the aristocratic recruit Cruel Dwight lost his cool completely and started screaming at Yan. He could not comprehend his actions in Snake Gorge. Below them, demonic eyes glared, and Yan asked his rival what he was doing, turning to his former captive. The 974th recruit gestured toward the rising monster. This giant beast, slowly, its massive, hellish form, ascended from the bottomless pit, materializing in the dark, opening its soulless eyes. The beast hungered for human spirits. Up above, Kasra Frayne, instantly felt the shift in the air and turned to Lena. For answers, the usually calm Lena Beowulf felt the exact same. Chilling disturbance and realized something terrible had gone down. As they stood on the cliffside, Lena detected a massive wave of dark energy radiating from Snake Gorge. What on earth was happening down there? In fear, Casa Ephraim told her friend that she had never felt pressure like this before. And honestly, can you even blame them? They had to face a huge question, namely how insanely powerful this new magic actually was. Lena Beowulf stared directly at her partner, Casa, and called a massive audible. Old plans, it was time to retreat right back to the gates. Immediately, Casa, though, could not understand the sudden panic. Forget the exam, Lena rushed to the trainees and ordered them to retreat to safety. She told them to dump their gear and mana stones and run for their lives. The recruits near the archway immediately obeyed, scrambling to escape, though some, like Casa, still did not get the haste. That was when Lena brought up Casa's question about the magic's power. With a grim look, Lady Beowulf admitted this dark force was on par with her own father. Hearing that confession sent a shockwave through Casa Ephraim. She knew Lena's father well, and his reputation was nothing short of legendary. He was the Guardian of the North, famously known as one of the 5 Fingers of the Empire. Remembering his devastating power, recruit number 3 could not believe this magic could match his raw strength. Terrified, the girl knew none of their training instructors stood a chance. They were completely defenseless against a monster like that. Meanwhile, at the instructor's base camp, the situation went south real fast as the beast stirred. An instructor in red pointed frantically to the sky, tracking a massive shadow. His partner snapped at him to stop messing around and keep moving, but those deadly fangs would terrify anyone, and the ravenous monster wanted more. Demanded more, it was never satisfied. Then things took a strange turn. Something strange begins happening to the training center instructors. They start losing it. They are completely slipping into madness, going absolutely insane as fear takes over. A sane recruit nearby frantically turns and asks Roman what is going on. Roman has no clue and just tells his comrade to keep on fighting. Suddenly, a massive hellish fire surges, burning the souls of those caught inside. The demon claims its victims. Deep within the dark abyss, a monster awakens. It laughs in pure joy, showing a bloody tongue marked with a crest. The same sigil glows red in the pool of blood. The nightmare begins. This beast demands their souls, sending the terrified crowd running for their lives. They run blindly, trying to escape the unknown monster chasing them down. The recruits sprint away from the towering evil at full speed. Jagged rocks block the path, making escape almost impossible in the chaos. Yet, driven by pure fear, they squeeze through. One after another, they fly. Instructors and recruits race forward together, praying the teleportation gate is nearby. Salvation is just ahead, but then Lena Beowulf hears a strange sound. She freezes and instantly orders the entire group to stop moving. Throwing her arm out to block them, everyone looks at a recruit. He ignores her order, completely controlled by a dark voice telling him to keep going. The poor guy mutters frantically about giving up his soul to the voice. Right before their eyes, his entire body starts to distort horribly. His face loses all human shape as the demonic possession takes hold. He keeps babbling about his soul while Lena Beowulf watches in horror. And honestly, there is absolutely nothing she can do to save him. The man suddenly explodes, his flesh torn apart as his soul is snatched. Ambush, a panicked recruit screams that they have walked right into a trap. But Casa Ephraim spots something else and tells everyone to look over. The blood left behind from the explosion begins to crawl and pool together. It moves with a mind of its own, shocking everyone watching. Mentors and recruits watch the shifting blood with pure, unadulterated dread. They quickly realize the liquid is spelling out an unusual, glowing magic seal. It is the exact same bloody mark they saw in the abyss. The very place where that horrific demonic creature first climbed out. Once the beast spots them, another agonizing wave hits. Several recruits drop to their knees, clutching their splitting headaches. Gripping her blade, Lena Beowulf stays perfectly calm in this nightmare. "Watch out," she yells to her squad, urging them to stay back. Staring ahead with absolute focus, she braces for the worst. From behind the glowing red seal on the stone, something crawls. A massive hand with razor-sharp claws grips the rock face. The creature sneers, telling them that they were the ones who woke it up. By stepping into the mountains of blades, they sealed their own fate. This hideous, ancient nightmare is finally free to hunt. It promises to repay them for its awakening with painful deaths. An ancient, multi-armed lick with a terrifying three-eyed skull finally appears. It looms over the trembling instructors, ready to harvest their souls. The monster's empty, soulless eyes burned with hellish flames, bringing nothing but destruction. In those dark times, magic was boundless, but wizards mourned as their power faded. Human life had limits, prompting greedy sorcerers to seek a way to break them. They found a way to master all magic through a forbidden witchcraft seal. Then the seal glowed, a blinding light, but the price was steep. To claim their eternal life, the wizards willingly sold their souls to darkness. Obsessed with perfecting their dark crafts, they resorted to the most brutal measures. With a swift, sickening motion, the head of one magic scholar fell. Holding his own head, he realized this sacrifice was the only path to power. The desperate wizard transformed into a terrifying monster, filled with absolute hatred. Loathing every living thing, he crossed the point of no return. Now a terrifying lick, he joined the demonic horde to unleash pure chaos. But to Lena, this creature was far more than a simple monstrous lick. She couldn't understand why he would suddenly appear here of all places. Suddenly, a desperate cry echoed across the rocky terrain of Snake Gorge. Meanwhile, his accomplices, Jake and Todd, were hot on the trail. Chasing the 12th recruit, Roman, they wondered why he fled so suddenly. Roman urged them to stay quiet and keep a sharp eye out. Just ahead, they stumbled upon the dead bodies of fellow training cadets. Staring at the bloodied red uniforms, the boys froze in absolute horror. They couldn't wrap their heads around who could commit such a slaughter. Overwhelmed by the grim scene, Roman's thoughts drifted back to his escape. He remembered his companion, Yan, with whom he had fled the facility. Just before being teleported to the Klinka Mountains, they met secretly. They had blended in during the assembly of the new recruits. Looking completely exhausted, Roman whispered to Yan about their failed plan. Even so, their situation was not quite as bad as they thought. Yan suggested they head deep into the mountains together for safety. Roman warned him of the sheer danger, but Yan insisted on going solo. Turning to the 12th recruit, John decided to share a final warning. They shared a deep bond, and Roman listened with absolute focus. He warned him that if danger approached, he must run immediately. He had to escape through the gate and abandon the exam entirely. Shocked, Roman realized that Cadet 974 had planned this all along. Back then, Roman had no idea what his companion had truly done. But now at Snake Gorge, they stood face to face with ancient horror. The skeletal claws of a massive demonic entity dragged across the stone. It advanced slowly toward Lorna Beowulf and her terrified squad. Shrouded in screaming skulls, the lick sneered at the pathetic mortals. Terrified mentors urged the trainees to ignore the blocked exit. They ordered them to flee toward the closest gate instead. As the frantic recruits scrambled to retreat, Lorna Beowulf stood her ground. She ordered them to clear out immediately, refusing to let anyone die. Unwilling to abandon her friend, Casa Fra urged her to flee together. But Lena drew her sword, the cold steel flashing as she braced for battle. To stay behind and face the demonic beast alone, ready for battle in her combat gear. Lena Beowulf intends to hold back the terrifying lick, using her magic. Turning to look at Casa, the brave Lena begs her to help save the other. Cadets currently taking their exams here, but Casa tries to reassure her, insisting she cannot handle such a dangerous monster on her own. They can't, but Lena tells Casa she has to survive for the sake of her family, meaning she has to escape. She has no other choice but to agree with her, after Casa Frayne promises to do as she commands. She quickly flees. The 3rd recruit runs forward. Silently apologizing to Lena, she refuses to die here. The ancient three-eyed lick stares down at the lone girl standing before him, calling her stupid, standing directly opposite him armed with only a sword. No chance, Lena cannot stop him alone, just as the demon claims. Knowing his terrifying magical power, she understands this but still decides to stand her ground. Luckily, Lena Beowulf has two major advantages that might just give her a fighting chance to win this battle. First is her incredibly sharp sword, forged from a legendary metal called mithril, capable of destroying undead. Suddenly, something happens up ahead, forcing the top cadet to snap out of her thoughts and focus on the lick. Spiky flying skulls swarm around the monster, raising the stakes. He is fully ready. In a split second, the ancient Lick summons a massive wave of terrifying skulls and hurls them at Lena. Right in front of him glows the magical seal that awakened him. Now the creature wants nothing but her death, a deadly barrage of magical skulls is already flying toward Lena Beowulf to strike a fatal blow and steal her soul, but she refuses to go down. Without a fight, charging forward, she desperately tries to dodge the incoming blast. Her life was saved by high-ranking recruits, a leap of defiance against the dark ceremony, riding on the wings of the windbird. Witch's skulls keep flying toward her, and it seems like nothing can save her from this onslaught, but these demonic creatures know nothing about her sharp mithril sword, which easily cuts down demons. Waiting until the launched skulls close in, Lena Beowulf prepares to throw her spinning sword to completely dispel her magical enemies. An incredibly bright light erupts as her mithril weapon clashes with those terrifying flying skulls. The ancient monster can only watch in absolute silence as his plans to quickly destroy this fearless girl are ruined. But Lena Beowulf has another trick prepared to finish him once and for all. It's time. The demon's eyes widen with pure shock when a super bright pillar of divine light erupts directly in front of him. She knows that standard wizards cannot cast attack and defense spells. Simultaneously, armed with this knowledge, she plans to win this fight. Thanks to this strategy, she expects to emerge victorious from this dangerous battle. But wait, something completely unexpected happens on the field. A massive protective seal appears, catching the brave girl off guard. Right in front of the Lick, Lena cannot understand how the monster cast two spells simultaneously. Lady Beowulf never believed that simple floating skulls could wield magic. But if they can, then how many spells can this entire army of skeletons unleash? Shaken by this grim realization, the girl fails to notice another threat. Another terrifying skull sweeps in directly from behind. A split second later, the demonic beast sinks its sharp teeth into her body, catching her completely off guard. Shocked by the vicious ambush, Lena Beowulf loses her grip. She drops her legendary mithril sword, the weapon she relied on for survival. Losing her blade hurts, but freezing, slimy tentacles are already wrapping around her neck. She is now a helpless prisoner, entirely at the mercy of this ancient, terrible Lick. Surrounded by swarming bone monsters, Lena demands they release her at once. But Lady Beowulf is left dangling helplessly in midair, suspended by the supernatural skulls. She stands completely frozen, unable to understand what is happening. Slowly, the monstrous Lick glides toward his captured prey. This soul-devouring beast needs her. Lena glares back with sheer disgust. He wants to break her. This is his ultimate punishment for her brave defiance. The ancient evil is about to completely extinguish her valiant soul. The Lick mocks Lady Beowulf, promising to turn her into a mindless servant. She will become just another hollow corpse, destined to obey his absolute command. The singular demonic eye glowing inside the skull burns with an ominous crimson light. It signals a dark, incoming doom for every living soul in this world. Meanwhile, outside the newly awakened Lick's massive stone temple, a heavy silence hangs. Right outside the entrance to this cursed lair, a strange shadow suddenly appears. To enter the gigantic sanctuary, one has to ascend a steep flight of stairs. Right there at the very base of the steps, the bizarre visitor hesitates. The intruder is draped in animal pelts, with a horned beast skull masking his face. He mutters something about finding an easy target, though the ruins seem deserted. Before him lies the ominous, pitch-black gateway leading deep into the palace. This is the legendary lair of the ancient, slumbering Lick. Suddenly, the masked stranger senses a strange vibration underfoot. It feels as if a wave of volatile magic is erupting from the earth. As he steps toward the stone stairs, he triggers a hidden magic seal. The active trap immediately erupts, glowing with a blinding, superheated light. In an instant, a massive column of fire and crackling lightning roars upward. The blazing inferno intensifies, leaving absolutely no hope for the horned intruder. Or so it seems, because no ordinary creature could survive this magic. Amazingly, a dark silhouette slowly emerges from the fading embers. He is still determined to break into the Lick's deadly domain. Having survived the flame trap, the stranger removes the intimidating skull mask. Underneath, a boy with vibrant blue hair grumbles about his bad luck. He honestly believed that looting an ancient grave would be a piece of cake. Meet recruit number 974, Yang, currently facing a warm welcome. Luckily, he wears special armor crafted from volcanic armadillo hide. It makes him entirely immune to the 492 traps here. In fact, Yang has already climbed past the 12th trap in this corridor. Yang stepped onto the 36th floor of the lair, remembering the danger ahead. There were 30 moving traps hidden in the dark building, among other threats. By using weak goblins to bait the lick out, Yang wanted to grab the treasure. That was his original plan, but actually pulling it off, not so easy. Still, knowing the layout of the lair made it completely possible for Yang. During his time as squad captain, Yang had studied the lick extensively. Back from a brutal combat mission, he received a classified report on the beast. The first training squad from Blade Ridge fought this high-ranking monster. 900 soldiers died in that operation, and only 100 survived. Total devastation, the massive loss almost shut the training center down completely. But the files warned that feeding the lick blood could wake it up. With the cadet blood consumed, investigators finally tracked down the beast lair. Built in ancient times, this dark cavern was absolutely packed with lost treasures. Deep inside lay a massive library holding legendary, forbidden books. Reading just one of those books could turn an ordinary man into a supreme sage. Endless chests held gold, where a single coin could buy a lifetime of luxury. Remembering this, the young recruit Yang kept his focus on the main prize. But something was missing. The most crucial relic of all was gone. He needed the Vessel of Life, a magical egg carrying the lick's core power. This crucial relic had been lost in Yang's previous life. A military report pointed out its exact location inside the depths of the lair. However, there was a risk the artifact was destroyed during the fierce battle. The 974th recruit suddenly remembered a hidden detail. The precious Vessel of Life was likely hidden inside a preserved Imperial scroll. Legends claimed one could absorb the vessel's raw energy, but there was a catch. Actually taming and controlling its full potential was deemed totally impossible. But wait, the ancient scroll completely glossed over one major detail. Combining the vessel with high-grade mana stones would amplify his power tenfold. Suddenly, mastering the legendary breath of the divine dragon would be fully possible. Honestly, who wouldn't take a gamble like that for ultimate power? He would easily surpass his previous life's peak, bringing a smirk to his face. Stepping forward, Yang walked beneath the grand arches of the giant castle. This was the very place where the ancient demon had slept for centuries. His long journey through the military training center had finally led him here. Now the young warrior stood directly in front of a towering, massive set of doors. This was the entrance to the deepest level of the awakened demon's domain. According to the secret military files, the altar of the lick lay just beyond. He hesitated. Opening that door felt like stepping straight into hell. Yang carefully recalled the layout details from the report one last time. Taking his stance, the skilled warrior prepared a powerful lightning dagger. The steel blade thrown by Yang's skilled hands flew straight toward the barrier. It looked ready to blow the doors into a million tiny splinters, but then, no scratch. The heavy barrier did not even take a single dent. The thick stone doors didn't have a single scratch, completely untouched by the attack. Suddenly, a massive shockwave erupted with a deafening crash, sending Yang flying backward. A glowing magical mark suddenly flashed across the door. Yang quickly scrambled to his feet. The young man knew what was happening. He had heard about these legendary gates. Before he could even get close, the defense spells activated. An ethereal ghost suddenly appeared, instantly activating the magic seal. It hovered like a holographic projection, completely refusing to let him pass. His unfamiliar face didn't match its programmed memory. Fading away, the phantom muttered the name of the allowed guest. Deterred, Yang placed his hand against the cold stone wall to find another way. He was determined to bypass this gate, knowing one sure trick. Remembering the details from his report, the young monster hunter began to search. He carefully ran his hands all over the rough stone brick surface. Finally, he found a small square carved into the stone. Yang pressed the secret switch, unlocking the way into the lick's lair. A heavy grinding noise echoed as the massive hidden doors began to move. The hidden doors slowly slid upward, revealing a dark, terrifying abyss. This was an ancient secret tunnel, once used for smuggling captives. And the files warned of countless prisoners who never made it out. This dungeon was a literal labyrinth packed with primitive, deadly traps. Despite the danger, Yang kept his cool and remained positive. He was the captain, and no team leader gets left behind. Taking a deep breath, he stepped into the hidden passageway. He had plenty of time and a massive reward waiting for him. Meanwhile, inside the main chamber, Lena was staring down her horrific captor. The undead Lick loomed over her, threatening her with a painful death. The brave Beowulf warrior struggled against the writhing red tentacles. Terrifying crimson tentacles shot toward her from the monster's body. But she just sneered, mocking the rotting, smelly skeleton in front of her. The horrible demon only laughed, amused by her useless defiance. The monster couldn't wait to devour her soul and watch her suffer. The hellish creature sneered, relishing the thought of breaking her. He slowly detailed the agonizing torment he had planned for her future. The Dark Lord promised to turn the proud warrior into a mindless, flesh-eating zombie. He scoffed that she wouldn't look so brave once she was turned. Finished with his terrifying threats, the hellish beast moved in for the kill. Slimy red tentacles whipped through the air, aimed directly at her face. It really seemed like this was the end for the brave academy recruit. The disgusting alien appendages completely wrapped around her helpless frame. Our number one recruit was totally pinned down with absolutely no hope. The ancient beast laughed, already celebrating his easy victory. Suddenly, something completely unexpected threw the monster off guard. The Lick froze in shock, staring at the girl he thought was doomed. Her fierce desire to fight hadn't faded at all. Lena suddenly bit down hard on the demon's bloody tentacles. Her stubborn defiance completely enraged the Lick, who roared in pure pain. He roared, threatening to rip her to shreds using his dark magic. Using dark destruction and dark fracture, the Lick was ready to vaporize poor Lorena. Suddenly, the ancient demon paused, his eyes still burning with a deadly hellfire, yet he did not make any move to destroy his helpless captive. Standing resolute and looking boldly into his face, Lorena stared back questioningly. At the demon who was ready to end her life just a second ago, she did not understand why the Lick had stopped his attack and was suddenly turning away. In agitation, at that moment the monster was experiencing strange feelings, and a terrifying thought, a sudden fear for his own survival, crept into his mind. Using his supernatural senses, the demon Lick saw right through the heavy walls. To the crumbling barrier on his altar, a large crack glowed on the magical symbol. Meant to guard his lair, wait, who could have actually snuck in. Furious, the monster accused the girl of being nothing more than simple bait. He tightened his glowing red tentacles around the poor lady's neck even more. Lorena Beowulf did not understand, while the Lick assumed it was all planned betrayal. While he was distracted, someone slipped inside his sacred lair. The demon viciously ordered the struggling girl, who tried to protest, to shut up, before rudely tossing her aside into a heavy wave of crushing gravity. Knocked out cold, our recruit hit the floor, while the Lick ordered his flying skulls to return and open the gates. The Lick's magical mark glowed bloody red again as the skulls circled round and round, following the outline of the demonic symbol. Through this ritual, the monsters formed Gate 127 and 5 to return to the beast's lair. Passing through this portal, the Lick ordered his magic to transport him and his flying skulls directly to the altar, slowly pushing herself up. Lorena, deeply weakened after the monster's brutal blow, groaned in pain. Holding her bruised body, the girl watched her departing tormentor, completely unable to understand where he had decided to go. Back at his altar, things were bright, completely empty. A heavy, serene silence hung as if he had never even awakened. In the central circle of the altar, where there was only empty space, before the glowing outline of the Lick's magical sign began to emerge. Now, his dark symbol was fully visible on the once white altar, letting the monster freely ascend to this sacred sanctuary. The Lick, who had just burst into the room, was absolutely furious that a stranger dared to invade his native home and desecrate his sacred altar. The monster simply could not understand how this intruder bypassed every single trap and shattered the powerful barrier he created 1,000 years ago, since only he knew this secret location. While the demon suspected the elite Emperor's Guild of Wizards and Knights, he suddenly stumbled upon several glass bottles filled with precious elixir. Staring at the transparent containers, the demon could not believe that someone had actually drank his elixirs, throwing him into an absolute rage. He had spent 1,000 years perfecting these rare elixirs to restore his mana and physical strength. It took the ancient beast 1,000 years to become human. Gone, 1,000 years of effort completely wasted. Meanwhile, the stranger who had invaded the lair sat, relaxed on the throne, scoffing at the Lick's complaints, casually enjoying their rather It tasted great. The ancient monster whipped around toward him. The intruder stood there. He had actually shattered the defensive barrier. The recruit kept mocking him. The 974th warrior laughed. Taking a sip, Yang casually asked the giant beast to calm down. He even offered to save some delicious elixir for him. But chugging pure magic always comes with serious side effects. Yang felt totally wasted, saving the good stuff for later. Big mistake. The ancient demon stared. Who exactly was this ridiculous intruder? He crossed wizards and imperial knights off his list of potential threats. A drunk teenager broke his barrier. This was absolute humiliation. The archaic monster turned pale, radiating pure, suffocating hatred. Yang easily noticed his opponent's burning rage, but he just smiled. It was great to stroll right through the front door. The lick snapped, ordering the brat to shut up before he died. Did Yang really believe his little break-in would actually go unnoticed? In reality, Yang had already stolen a rare treasure right from him. The boy kept blabbering about some secret tunnel he had discovered. But the lick believed Yang was just mocking his main defenses. Why break the massive front barrier? The question drove him crazy. Hearing his terrifying enemy fume, Yang remembered climbing those altar steps. At that moment, he felt like Lena was watching and cheering. He simply wanted to smash that entrance barrier to absolute pieces. He did. The boy shattered the guardian ghost completely. A total victory. Behind the gates, the loot was insane. Tons of ancient text and rare elixirs filled the chamber. There was even a book detailing the legendary mana engine. The lick let out a dark laugh. He absolutely hated the kid's attitude. Did this arrogant brat even know how all this treasure came to be? The monster was named M-Man, an ancient king who turned undead. For 1,000 years, he had been plotting his ultimate revenge. 10 centuries of meticulous planning, only to be ruined by a single rat. He had cursed his own soul just to destroy the one who betrayed him. The traitor took everything from him. The lick wanted complete payback. Yet now, because of this one kid, his glorious dream was dead. But Yang just kept drinking, yawning as he watched the beast rant. Tell me more, the boy mocked. The demon froze. Talk about absolute disrespect. Honestly, you have to admire his audacity. The lick silently stared at the recruit, who was still complaining. Furious, the ancient monster raised his hand, igniting a dangerous magic seal. He unleashed his legendary spell, the Breath of the Raven. He was going to completely incinerate this arrogant brat until nothing remained. The brave recruit slowly closed his eyes, silently gathering his strength. He was ready to strike back hard against this evil opponent. In the next second, his eyes snapped open, burning with intense determination. He was determined to stop the ancient monster's attack right here. Clad in wild flames, the monster lunges to grab the recruit for a fatal strike. The terrible demon is almost upon him, yet Yang remains completely unfazed. Ignoring the lethal threat, Yang stares dead into his terrifying opponent's eyes. Suddenly, the lick's mana shifts, triggering a bizarre wave of panic and excitement. Right in the heat of battle, the incredibly calm Special Forces recruit moves. Yang reaches into his pocket, casually praising the demon for his quick instincts. The monster burns with pure rage, 1,000 years of hatred boiling over. He realizes this mere human just swiped his most precious treasure, the vessel of life. With a sharp move, Yang pulls back his shirt, exposing his chest to the creature. Right there glows a brilliant magical brand, matching the lick's own dark mark. The sacred white altar the young soldier searched so desperately for is now completely bare. He got what he came for, and now he is running for his life. Yang bolts across the stone bridge, desperate to outrun the bloodthirsty demon's wrath. Pushing his special forces training to the absolute limit, he moves like wind. In the blink of an eye, Yang vanishes from the crumbling altar path. That insane burst of speed is the only thing keeping him from getting fried. A massive storm of fire rains down, turning the bridge into a literal hellscape. The roaring lick chases after Yang, screaming that a worthless insect cannot outrun death. Honestly though, who in their right mind would just stand there and get roasted? While sprinting, Yang shouts back, reminding the monster that they now share one life. If the beast crushes Yang, he destroys his own life force and dies right alongside him. But the demon laughs. He has no intention of killing his prize just yet. Yang glances back, deeply skeptical of this horrifying creature's twisted game. No, the lick wants to possess him, stealing the body of the 974th recruit. Since Yang ruined a 1,000-year-old plan, taking his body seems like a fair trade. Stripping the brat of his life and identity is the ultimate payback. Plus, the boy's flesh holds the concentrated power of those legendary elixirs. The demon wants his investment back, and he is going to rip it out of Yang. Our young soldier blinks in shock at the monster, trying to claim his body. Yang sighs, offering the ancient creature a tired, sarcastic apology. But becoming a demon's new puppet is definitely not on his agenda today. The Lick demands immediate surrender, promising to treat his future body with care. Once he gets his hands on it, of course, suddenly dual spells spark to life. A storm of curses erupts, and a dozen glowing magical seals lock onto Yang. Trapped, Yang realizes his only way out is unleashing the dragon's divine breath. Blinding yellow fire begins erupting from the monster's crimson magic seals. The core inside Yang activates, sending a jolt of energy straight to his chest. Suddenly, the strange glowing sigil from the secret entrance flares with brilliant light. Under the pressure of this forbidden magic, the demon's lair begins crumbling apart. The floor splits open. The Lick hasn't unleashed his full power in ages. He is completely baffled how a mere human recruit is still standing after that. Suddenly, Yang flashes right behind the beast, wearing a very smug grin. The old monster did not expect such a reckless move from his prey. Spitting out a vile insult, the Lick immediately fires another blast from his red seal. The dark dragon's rebellion is unleashed, and Yang is already on the move. He laughed mockingly at an opponent only capable of such tiny tricks. Deep in the beast lair, massive corridor doors lay shattered on the floor. It looked like they were blown apart by a powerful blast wave. A blinding pillar of light erupted, completely destroying the gateway to the hallway. Fleeing from the demon's magic, Yang, a rookie special forces recruit, never expected his training mission to spiral so horribly out of control. Mana flows constantly through his heart, much like air moving in and out of the lungs. This is the true power of the divine dragon's breath. Right then, the guy remembered how he gnawed on monster hearts back in the mountains of Blades. In ancient magic stones, just recently he consumed almost all of his rare elixir. Brewed by that ancient beast, the 974th recruit of the unit will eat absolutely anything to get stronger. He is even willing to try consuming the life vessel of a demon Lick to boost his own powers. When Yang swallowed half the vital vessel to restore his failing strength, a strange magical mark, the very crest the demon noticed, appeared on his chest. At this rate, Yang will quickly regain the godlike power of his past life. It may even scale to entirely new heights. Talk about a massive comeback. Yang sprinted ahead at maximum speed, completely ignoring the danger around him. Suddenly, he has to brake hard, his boots sliding wildly across plush red carpet. Lining the floor of this monster's domain, the doorway ahead simply vanishes, trapping Yang at a complete dead end, even though he clearly remembers that the escape route was right here. He cannot fathom what happened. Behind him, the Lick draws near, letting out a cruel laugh at Yang, and mocking him like a trapped rat, revealing he triggered the wall traps. With the exit sealed, Yang has nowhere to run. The Lick eagerly watches. But the clever recruit assesses his options and decides to fight back. He resolves to kill the Lick, but this is a seemingly impossible task. Yang has absolutely no weapons or tools left to defend his own life. Folding his demonic claws, the beast promises to rip his limbs apart. After making that threat, the horrific Lick begins activating a dark summoning ritual. A bloody crimson spell seal materializes in the air, casting a dark incantation to summon the undead. He calls forth a burning demonic dragon skull. The ancient monster orders the skull to retrieve the young recruit's body. Yang watches the horrifying spectacle unfold, realizing he cannot take on the Lick yet. The ethereal dragon head continues to burn with a sinister, devilish fire. It feels like the absolute end for this cornered special forces recruit. Suddenly, a brilliant scarlet cloak of noble design sweeps into view. A familiar voice rings out, asking Yang if he is still alive. While Yang plots his next move, Prince Leon Cabalan arrives on the battlefield. The royal heir tells the young recruit to hand the demon over to him. Leon Cabalan rushed over after hearing about the disaster during the exam. Even so, he certainly did not expect to find such a horrific, ancient beast here. The prince furiously accuses the Lick of murdering hundreds of young cadets and soldiers, wiping out countless promising lives before they could even bloom. Burning with immense fury, the royal prince has no intention of showing mercy. He was responsible for so many innocent lives lost, Still, the monster just stared. Silently, it studied the sudden arrival of the Imperial heir, caught off guard. Bowing quickly, Yang greeted His Highness, while Leon stared back at him. Leon recognized the volunteer cadet, utterly baffled by his presence in this place. After chasing the lick alone, Yang was trapped, a detail Leon realized instantly. He knew exactly who had tipped him off to the beast's location. Leon thanked the young man and ordered him to run for his life. The recruit was relieved the prince arrived in time, but credit lay elsewhere. His buddy Roman, recruit number 12, was the real hero of the hour. Before the first exam, Yang had begged his friend to deliver a message. Give the chief instructor coordinates 224 and 7 at the gate. The prince had to hear it too, and now he confronted the demon. The beast quietly analyzed the flesh and energy of this powerful new opponent. The ancient Lick wondered how Crown Prince Leon Cabalan was linked to Bahamut. However, Leon had no idea what this otherworldly monster was talking about. But the creature grew incredibly agitated when the prince pressed for answers. Leon demanded to know why the demon had uttered the founding emperor's name. Staring down the terrifying beast, Leon locked eyes, refusing to back down. The demon spat in fury that Bahamut's sacred blood flowed in this prince. To a creature of darkness, it was a joke. Laughing, he mocked humanity. Still, Momona rejoiced at the sheer power of the divine dragon's breath. For this ancient creature, today was a glorious return to the past. Now Leon was determined to put an end to this legendary monster. Only the legendary Bahamut was supposed to wield the divine dragon's breath. Yet the Lick cheered, thrilled to face the living bloodline of his ancient foe. Suddenly, we see a mysterious man standing deep inside a massive, shadow-filled library. Surrounded by endless books, he cast glowing, mystical seals upon the walls. With an extraordinary talent for sorcery, he shaped magic at his whim. Holding absolute ownership over this massive library, he ruled his paper empire. This brilliant creator of seals was known only as the Wizard Moment.